Reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The summer of strikes continues as thousands of BT and Openreach workers walk out over pay.
Good morning, it's just after 6 o'clock. It's Tuesday the 30th of August. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Thank you very much for your company, wherever you're watching or listening. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
40,000 BT and Openreach staff are striking today in a dispute over pay. It comes as the union organising the industrial action also prepares to stage the mass walkout of over 100,000 postal workers tomorrow.
It's been a year since the final Western flight left Kabul, officially ending the 20-year war in Afghanistan and surrendering the country to Taliban rule. We'll reflect on the last 12 months.
Women in England and Wales will have permanent access to at-home abortion pills from today, but ambulance call-outs relating to the pills have increased by 64% since they became widely available. GB News has this exclusive report.
And in a new tell-all interview, Meghan Markle has claimed that she left Britain with Prince Harry because their existence, their very existence, upset the hierarchy. Well, nothing like speaking the truth, is there? How much does Meghan Markle upset you? She will by the time we've reported all of this today. She's talking about how Prince Harry has lost his father, how she has lost her father. Now, whose fault is that? You can join in any of our discussions today. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk or
you can tweet us at GB News, and don't forget you can subscribe to the GB News channel on YouTube to get all the latest on the big stories everyone's talking about.
OK, we've got another strike beginning today as the summer of strikes continue. 40,000 workers at BT and Openreach. What's the difference between BT and Openreach? This will be some corporate split in what they do.
Is Openreach the engineers that comes and
Could well
fixes
be.
it all, and BT is the actual provider?
Oh, yeah.
Just guessing. Thanks for the quiz check.
No, I'm just... You know, it's all these things mean things to these companies.
Yeah.
We're Openreach, we're BT. No, when you're all on strike, basically. So they're leaving their posts in a dispute over pay. Latest now in a wave of strikes, with more to come as we approach autumn.
Well, tomorrow we'll see the CWU union stage a strike of Royal Mail staff, which will see over 100,000 workers walking out once again. More mail strikes are then planned on the 8th and 9th of September.
Now, all of this comes as refuge workers in Scotland agree they will continue to strike next week after rejecting the latest pay offer from the local authority, despite returning to work in Edinburgh today. So some are in, some are out on all of this one. But the union boss, Mick Lynch, has also promised further rail strikes for the autumn, following mass walkouts in July and August.
And criminal barristers will begin an indefinite strike from the 5th of September, increasing the already severe backlog in the justice system. Well, Well, joining us now for more is a national officer at Unite, the union, Robert Morton, who is behind those strikes happening today. Just first of all, tell us your grievances then in relation to BT and Openreach specifically, and how this will impact, in your understanding, on people trying to use those, facilities.
I'm sorry, I thought I was coming on to speak about a Unite.
You're behind the union strikes tomorrow. My apologies. So give us a sense then of what we've got to come. This long list of strikes, it's easy to lose track, isn't it? Strikes every day at the moment and a real sign of the times. What specifically is your grievance?
We disagreed with the offer made, the wage increase offer made by the company in Felixstowe, and our stewards have met over the weekend, and in an attempt to break the deadlock, and it is a deadlock just at the moment, we are asking for the rate of inflation as the increase. The reps have met over the weekend, and in an attempt to make the break to break the deadlock, we are now seeking a 10% increase.
So it's going to be a very difficult winter, obviously, for workers, for people who are also, have these grievances that many will sympathise with you. But I suppose in all of this, there has to be the argument that, you, I'm sure, disagree with, but there will be people watching this who sympathise with you and believe in a fair day's pay for a fair day's work, but will also say these are not ordinary circumstances. We're effectively on a war footing. We're in a situation through no fault of our own where everybody is facing unbelievable bills and very few receiving pay rises in line with inflation. Surely there has to be some sort of compromise in all of this.
I think I've just made a compromise now by switching our sites from the inflation rate down to 10%. The inflation rate I'm talking about is the RPI, which currently is 12.3%. So we are moving in an effort to get the employer around the negotiating table. And when you talk about the cost of living and how hard things are and so on, I'm talking about a company that has made £240 million profit over the last 2 years. So they're not feeling the cold, they're not feeling the hunger, and they are in a position where they can afford to pay for the increase that we're looking for.
When you look at the argument that you've just given there, it's not dissimilar to what we're hearing from the post office workers. It's not dissimilar from what you'll hear with BT as well. So basically, the day has come that there has to be more responsibilities from these companies after the pandemic. It all seems to be, if I'm reading this correctly, you're saying it's all been take, and now it's time to give a little.
Well, yes, I'll use an often used phrase at the moment: enough is enough. We have suffered over the years. We have accepted rises that would be below inflation, but now, no, workers are fed up with this. It is time for the employer to come to the negotiating table and give a little back.
Robert, what is the mood of your people at Felixstowe? We're going to go down to Felixstowe and we're going to be reporting from there later today. But what is your view as to how resolute your members are?
They're very resolute. I went to the picket line on Wednesday with the General Secretary of Unite, and what we found is that people were in very, very good spirits. However, behind the very good spirits, there was anger, because this company, and let's face it, it was the dock workers that got this company through the 2.5 years of the pandemic. And these people are very, very angry that the company are refusing to sit down with us and negotiate what we see as a just increase.
OK, Robert, so at the moment, is there any sign of any flexibility, anything? Just final question to you in terms of progress, any closer to a resolution?
Well, I've just offered a way out for the company. There could be a resolution. It depends on the company now. We've reset our site. We've lowered our site. It's up to the company now to respond to us and get back around the negotiating table. It's the only way that any dispute is ever settled around the negotiating table.
Robert Morton, he's the National Officer for Unite the Union, representing the dockers at Felixstowe. Robert, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for bringing us up to date on the situation there. We're now going to the BT strike. Our man in the Midlands, Will Hollis, on this one. Will.
Good morning. Yes, it's quite tricky to keep track of just how many strikes are happening and who's representing which particular area of workers. This one that I'm looking into today, where I am in Lincoln, is related to BT and Openreach. They're represented by the Communication Workers Union. The Communication Workers Union also represents the Royal Mail staff that are on strike tomorrow and have been on strike earlier this week. Right now, why is this strike happening? This is actually the second wave of strikes for these BT and Openreach workers, 38,000 or so of them. At the end of July, we saw some massive strikes from BT and Openreach workers as well, and that hasn't been resolved yet. Just looking at a few different quotes from BT and then from the opposite side, from the CWU. BT say that they'd like to move forward past this issue, and CWU say that they'd like to get back around the table. So there's very much a lot of cliches that are being bandied around, but right now they are in a deadlock. Right now they're in a position where they can't get past this strike action. Back in April, BT said that they awarded a 5% pay rise. That was in effect £1,500. It was around 8% for the lowest paid workers that are part of BT and Openreach. CWU say it's just not enough, and they'd like to see something more in line with inflation, around about 10%. So you are going to see picket lines, around a few hundred picket lines, if it's anything like the strikes that we saw earlier a month ago in July. You're also going to see a little bit of an impact, but BT say that they've got resilience processes in place because of 2 years of the pandemic, and they're just going to delay any non-essential engineering work. Why is this happening? It's all to do with the cost of living crisis, of course. We saw earlier in the week, we saw the figure released by Ofgem, £3,500, and so that's really hard for a lot of the lowest paid workers as well as the middle earners as well. So I think you are going to see a few more strikes like this, and you're certainly going to see more from us today here in Lincoln.
We'll be back for you with that at 8 o'clock. Just want to say to everybody involved in that strike in Lincoln, with the BT strike and the Openreach strike, and the post office workers unions as well, all represented by the CWU. Their lead negotiator, Dave Ward, live on this very programme, 8 o'clock this morning, to explain the situation and how things are going. Your questions very welcome, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at gbnews.
Now, it's been 1 year today since the West's sudden withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Well, as well as living under Taliban rule, the people of Afghanistan have been hit by an economic crisis, with around half the population facing the threat of starvation.
Our security editor, Mark White, has this extended report.
12 months on from the chaos and the carnage of a sudden, badly managed withdrawal, Afghanistan has all but disappeared from our nightly news bulletins. Yet right across this country, they're living with the consequences of a decision made a world away in Washington. Here in the capital and elsewhere, the queues at the UN's World Food Programme feeding stations are constant. Afghans who just a year earlier held down respectable jobs, now forced to beg for handouts.
My husband was martyred the day the Taliban came to power a year ago. We had some savings from his service to the Afghan army over the last 15 years. Now all that is finished.
People cannot afford things from my shop now. There's no business for people.
The sanctions have had a huge impact on our businesses. The Afghan assets frozen by America are essential for food security and the value of our currency.
The United Nations has described the situation here as the world's largest humanitarian disaster, with over half the population facing the threat of starvation. It is the outcome many had feared, that they'd warned would follow from the decision by US President Joe Biden to exit Afghanistan 2 decades after coalition forces first entered this country. The Taliban took full advantage, and as they rolled towards and then into the capital, panicked Afghans, many who'd worked for the government and coalition forces, scrambled to get out. At Kabul airport, US, British and other troops tried their best to manage the withdrawal, but increasingly desperate locals broke through the airport's perimeter. In horrifying scenes, some jumped onto one departing US aircraft, only to plunge to their deaths as it gathered speed and took off. As the world watched, President Biden doubled down on his decision to pull out.
I was not going to extend this forever war, and I was not extending a forever exit.
Just days before the end of the pullout, in the huge sewage canal alongside the airport, where thousands had been queuing, a suicide bomb attack by the Islamic State. 13 members of the US military were among the more than 180 killed. Right across the political spectrum, in the US and beyond, President Biden's handling of the Afghan withdrawal has been widely criticised, branded a low point in America's standing in the world. Many analysts believe it simply emboldened autocrats like Vladimir Putin.
The message that our withdrawal sent to the world, which I believe helped encourage President Putin to invade Ukraine. I think the reduction in US international credibility and reliability, I think, has made the world much, much less safe.
In the years since the pullout, the UK has taken more than 20,000 Afghans as part of the resettlement programme, but many more remain trapped in country and unable to leave. Throughout Afghanistan, Taliban promises they've changed, that women could continue to work and girls would get a full education, have fallen way short. On the security side, fears remain that extremist groups will continue to take hold here. One Western documentary maker who spent a significant amount of time with the Taliban has documented their continued fight against Islamic State. It's one extremist group he says the Taliban seem determined to confront.
The strong part of the Taliban is actually security. They have been fighting Islamic State for 6 years now. So that's the thing they can do. And they are not doing this to satisfy the Western audiences. They are doing this because they want the Islamic State eliminated in Afghanistan.
But last month's US drone strike, which targeted and killed the al-Qaeda leader in Afghanistan, highlights the continued security concerns here. Eamonn al-Zawahiri had been living in a property in Kabul, reportedly owned by a top aide to a Taliban government official. 12 months on from the Western withdrawal here, the Taliban may be celebrating, but the extremist threat remains. The humanitarian crisis is worsening, and the freedoms spoken of by the new government are yet another false promise to the long-suffering people of this beautiful but troubled nation. Mark White, GB News.
Well, that's a shameful anniversary, really. Very depressing.
Time's coming up to 6:20. You're tuned into Breakfast here on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
A 21-year-old man has died after being stabbed at the Notting Hill Carnival as more than 200 arrests were made at the event. Metropolitan Police say officers were called to the Ladbroke Grove area last night. The man died in hospital. 209 arrests were made over the entire event of the bank holiday, including 46 for assault, 33 possessing an offensive weapon.
Boris Johnson has said the deadly floods in Pakistan are heartbreaking as the death toll passed 160,000. The Queen has written to Pakistan's president saying she's deeply saddened by the tragic loss of life and the UK is sending support.
At the US Open, tennis champ Andy Murray has won his first Grand Slam since Wimbledon in 2017, beating his opponent in straight sets. Murray said after that he put in a solid performance.
Meghan Markle, otherwise known as the Duchess of Sussex, has given another interview, a bombshell interview, to a magazine called The Cut.
Yes, she has indeed. Are you ready for some truth bombs? In the interview, she said her very presence in the UK upset the hierarchy of the royal family.
Upsets more than the hierarchy of the royal family, I would say. But anyway, just...
and also claimed that unspecified members of the British media had used the N-word to refer to her children. A new N-word allegation from her.
From members of the British media?
Yes, unsubstantiated allegations, I might add.
OK, let's go to our showbiz reporter in LA, Kinsey Schofield, for her thoughts on this. What's that on your head?
Well, first of all, I have to say, Miss Isabel, I missed you. And we need to redefine truth bombs if we're going to say Meghan dropped truth bombs.
OK,
because
she's speaking her own truth bombs, to quote her in many different forms.
And Eamonn, I'll return your hat after the show.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, so it's called The Cut. This is a really edgy magazine here in the States. Not only is this an edgy magazine in the States, but this is a magazine that clearly has no respect for the British royal family, because if you look at their social media and you look at some of their past stories, they have spoken about, completely non-true rumors about the Cambridge family and affairs that could have possibly gone on. This is a gossipy magazine that is not pro-royal family, so I think it's very interesting that Meghan chose this outlet of all outlets to go to when she could have had Vanity Fair, she could have had Vogue, she could have had any of those bigger media partnerships, and she chose The Cut. I think that's really interesting. But yeah, some of the things that she said that somebody in the Royal Rota, who we know, the people that follow the royal family, they're typically very good humans, kind human beings. I've never heard them say anything aggressive or hateful about Harry or Meghan's children, let alone something racist about Harry or Meghan's children. She says that Prince Harry no longer has a relationship with his father, which Prince Charles sources are saying is not exactly true, and that hurts Prince Charles to hear that. And yeah, I don't think that this is the last we're going to hear from Meghan Markle. Her podcast with Mariah Carey drops later today. So we have a lot more coming from Meghan. Brace yourselves.
Difficult, isn't it? Because she's obviously appealing to an audience that perhaps stateside is lapping all of this up. But meanwhile, you only have to go onto some of the comment sections of the online reporting here in the UK to see this isn't the British media who are disgusted with what she's saying. It's the British public. I mean, they really hate the comments that she's making about the royal family. This suggestion on the 25th anniversary of Princess Diana's death that Harry has lost his father. I mean, can we just take a moment to point that out? It's just shocking.
Or the fact that she's going to drop her podcast episode on Divas with Mariah Carey on the eve of Princess Diana's death. I think that's who are these PR people that she's working with? I do wonder if there's a strategy behind it where it's the 25th anniversary of Princess Diana's death. She's going to be on magazine covers, so let's get Meghan on magazine covers too, so that people compare the two. Also, I don't know if you saw the picture, Isabel, but the picture on the cover of The Cut cut, it looks exactly like a picture that Princess Diana took in a black turtleneck. It is bizarre. And we've seen her on multiple occasions try to dress like Princess Diana. It is bizarre. Does Prince Harry not look at her and say, that looks an awful lot like something my mother would wear?
Maybe he likes that. Who knows? And you can't fault her. I honestly think she's a very, very beautiful woman, and that's how she has mesmerised Harry. But it is so sad. When we were saying, weren't we, Eamonn, earlier, just when we were talking about this, he has physically lost his mother. She has died. But through this whole process, as Meghan calls it, he's lost his father, this relationship with his father. She, as we know, is estranged from her father as well. And that's through choice. It's not through death.
And when she was asked about that specifically in this interview, she diverts attention away from it and goes into Prince Harry losing his father. Whenever she's asked about something that kind of forces her to be held accountable, she talks about something else. She brings up something else, and it typically throws a lot of weight onto Prince Harry, which is pretty unfair. It's devastating. And Prince Harry should be remembering his mother, should be connecting with his brother in the next few hours. And unfortunately, because of this bombshell interview and because of an upcoming podcast and 12 weeks of podcasts, that's not very likely.
Do you know, Kinsey, maybe the problem is that so many people, when they sit down to interview this actress, is that they take her seriously and they give her respect that perhaps she doesn't deserve. I'm just going to read you an extract from the interview where she said she told the magazine that they were living in while they were living in Britain, she and Harry felt they were being criticised for their taxpayer-funded lifestyle. She said she suggested to the firm, the royal family, that Meghan and Harry should carry on as working royals in a Commonwealth country, maybe New Zealand or Canada. So basically, her delusion is that she's saying, Harry and I can become king and queen of Canada or New Zealand, and we'll set up our own fiefdom there. Why doesn't someone actually interview her and laugh in her face?
I'll tell you that. Yeah, well, I bet she's scared of you. I think that in the States, there is something so romantic about a prince and a princess. I think that we are still so lost in this storyline, which actually, if she were upfront and honest, a Hallmark actress getting to marry the most famous prince in the world, that's an incredible and compelling story. Just go with the story that's true. You don't have to create all these false stories and accuse everybody of racism to have people enchanted by your life story. But she is just wrapped up in this victimhood. And at some point, people are going to get tired of hearing about a woman complaining from her mansion, from her $1 million mansion.
What would you do, Eamonn, if you were interviewing Meghan Markle, as you've offered to do? And wait, she asked you to transcribe her guttural sounds that she made during the sit-down interview.
Wait, hold on, wait.
What she specifically said, she said, don't write down... When I ask you a question and I don't give words, please transcribe what the sounds were. Here we go. Here she is.
Oh.
Here's Meghan. Go for it. Ask a question.
Well, you'd be saying, are you serious? Are you seriously, are you... I mean, deluded. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, I'm just saying this. I mean, if this was a showbiz star, they would just be laughed out of the room on this. Folks, get in touch. Join the conversation on Meghan speaking out again. gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet @gbnews. I mean, Kinsey, is it fair to say that her life is miserable? Because it seems to be miserable. She's miserable at being a woman. She's miserable at being a royal.
Millionaire.
She's miserable at being a millionaire. She's miserable with her own family. She's completely... I mean, who would want to be her? Who would want to be this princess who doesn't see herself as a princess? She sees herself as a queen, really.
Well, that's true, but don't forget, she told the reporter that people still see her as a princess in that article, that little girls see her as a princess. So she still is under the delusion that she is this, Cinderella story. But I would advise her to look forward. Be positive. What's to come? What can you look forward to? You are so blessed. Say you're blessed. Talk about how in love you are with your husband. Talk about how smart and beautiful your children are. Those, again, like this, that's a great story. And say you're living the American dream. You're so excited to be here in America. Why do you have to continue to tear down your in-laws that completely helped you build your brand? It's unnecessary.
It is.
Kinsey, well summed up. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciating that. That's
You mean Meghan? Thanks, Meghan.
In the
I've got one of those
Cut
of your face,
magazine.
Eamonn. Did you know that?
Well, what you do with that is up to you.
I've got about 15 of them. Anyway, that's another story. Right, we're going to take a break. After that, we've got a really serious GB News exclusive report, actually, about the concerns around at-home abortion pills. They become a permanent feature of family planning here in the UK, in England, I should say, from today. More after the break.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Today, women in England and Wales will have permanent access to at-home abortion pills. But according to GB News, there's been a significant rise in the number of women since the medication became available.
Requiring ambulances. Pills by post were temporarily introduced during the pandemic and allowed women to be sent them without a face-to-face consultation, but figures obtained exclusively by this channel show the number of ambulance call-outs increased by 27%, with some trusts taking double the number of calls from women concerned after taking the pills.
Alice Porter has more on this in a warning that you may find her report disturbing.
Kirsty was in a coercive relationship during the first lockdown. Her boyfriend forced her to order abortion pills over the phone, which she took beyond the 10-week limit.
I made the phone call to the abortion clinic, sort of hoping that they'd sort of question my decision, because I knew deep down that I didn't want to do it. And I didn't have any checks. They didn't even offer me a scan, so I wasn't even sure. I wasn't sure of the dates anyway of when I first found out I was pregnant.
So you got the abortion pills. Just explain what the process was like when you took the tablets.
Terrible cramps for hours. And then once I lifted my blanket, I was saturated in blood. And it wasn't my blood, it was my baby's blood.
Before the pandemic, all women who wanted an abortion had to be seen in person by a medical professional. They'd be assessed and scanned. If they were in the early stages of pregnancy, they'd be given 2 abortion pills, one to take in the clinic and one to take home. Now, of course, that wasn't practical during lockdown, so the government introduced a scheme where women would be sent abortion pills in the post to take at home. But with no one seeing them in person, has there been enough safeguarding? We sent a Freedom of Information request to all the ambulance trusts in England. Of the 6 which responded, all showed that since abortion pills by post became available in 2020, there's been a rise in the number of women ringing 999 about abortion pills and an increase in ambulance dispatches. London saw the number of call-outs go from 93 in 2019 to 150 in 2020, a 61% increase. In the east of England, the number of call-outs went from 7 in 2019 to 24 in 2020, a rise of 243%. And in the southwest, the number of call-outs went from 33 in 2019 to 74 in 2020, up by 124%. The National Network of Designated Healthcare Professionals has also recorded cases of women taking abortion pills when they're too far along, resulting in a small number of aborted babies being born alive. As a result, one ambulance trust has spent £7,000 on making special mannequins to train their staff when confronted with this difficult situation. But Anne Farady is former head of the British Pregnancy Advisory Service and says for the vast majority of women, at-home abortions are completely safe.
The only downside is that sometimes a doctor or a nurse can perhaps pick up cues by seeing someone in front of them that they wouldn't pick up remotely. But we can't organise medical care on the basis of just the very few. We have to really look at what's best for everyone in these circumstances, and home use pills by post definitely is.
While at-home abortions may not suit some women, today's announcement does allow everyone the opportunity of deciding which option is best for them. Alice Porter, GB News. Well, this is what the Minister for Public Health, Maggie Throop, had to say on the statistics. She said the well-being and safety of women requiring access to abortion services is paramount. With these measures, women will have more choice in how and where they access abortion services, while ensuring robust data is collected to ensure their continued safety.
We'll take a break. Papers after that.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Time for the papers, and to read all about it, we go through those with the journalist and former MEP Martin Dobney and the columnist Ella Whelan. Good to see both of you. Ella, we're going to start with you and the cost of living. This is everywhere. Front page of The Guardian. Schools face closure. Chaos as costs soar, warn Conservatives.
Yes, well, so much of the discussion about the cost of living crisis has understandably been about the effect it will have on households and, individuals looking at their energy bills and getting a horrible shock. But you have to remember that there are other aspects of life, other industries, and indeed things like schools or the NHS, where the cost of energy is going to be crippling in the extreme. And, if you have to heat schools for 5 days a week, and we know that lots of, I went to a very, very drafty school. It's not like not all of them are kind of modern with double glazing, that kind of thing, that it can be extremely expensive, and with prices rising in excess of 200%.
Naively, I would have thought, oh yes, so schools, the government pay their bills. The government doesn't pay their bills. This comes out of their existing budgets.
Yes, and they're not covered by the cap. So they're, quoted in The Guardian, the Department for Education talks about the fact that there is £7 billion coming in to the budget for schools, and that some of that will come in this year. That's projected for 2024.
You don't want school budgets being spent on that.
No. Exactly.
You want that being spent on books and learning.
Exactly.
But one thing I will say in all of this is, what's different from when we were at school? Blackboards. Now, all they use is electronic devices. They're constantly writing on screens and projectors, and everything has to be using power. I don't understand the advantage of it. They've all got these digital whiteboards. Mm-hmm. What's wrong with a bit of...
They never work either.
They never work,
they
but
don't
they're
ever
on
work
all the time, and they're generating heat in their own right. So sometimes I think schools are over-hot, so they're wasting energy. Doors are off. Anyway, I'm on my high horse. I do sympathise with this. We don't want to see money being wasted in the wrong places in schools, but I do think a lot of schools aren't very economical.
Well, but I think we also just forget that, I keep saying this, people forget because we've had a hot summer, how cold the UK gets in the winter, how cold and damp it gets. And the suggestion in The Guardian is that some people are saying that schools will have to go down to 3 or 4 days a week in order to cut costs, which is the last thing you want.
And listen, if your school is in Scotland or Northern Ireland, it's going to be colder than if it's in Manchester.
Exactly. And there's, I think the sort of sour end of this is the fact that Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, but at this point, most of us are assuming that Liz Truss will get the job, her team are continuously sort of saying, it's almost like you're waiting for the kind of end of a good novel, though it's a terrible novel. Wait to see how this pans out. We've got our plans, but we're not going to tell you yet. And it's very dispiriting when every day the headlines are getting worse and worse about what the impact of this cost of living crisis is, and our government in waiting is still a government in waiting.
So, Ellie, what you're saying is you don't believe they have a clue what they're going to do about this?
I think if there was any kind of significant plan for both the short term and the long term in terms of energy crisis, we would have heard it by now because it would have been a vote winner.
Yeah.
And that's probably me being cynical, but I think there's a lot of kind of shuffling papers and panic behind the scenes, and not much ideas.
You see, what I don't understand, Martin, is how come we will have our energy caps? Some people will be able to afford it, some people won't be able to afford it. But if you're a restaurant, if you're a fish and chip shop, if you're a school, you don't have it.
That's right, and not only schools, but pubs. The beleaguered hospitality industry was left on its knees after the pandemic, after being forced to shut down for the best part of 2 years. And now they're saying the same thing. We're going to see the decimation of pubs as well. There are obviously different issues here. Domestic caps don't apply to businesses, and it's very alarming.
Yeah, but you can totally take the argument about schools across to the NHS as well.
Yeah.
Exactly the same problem. Huge bills in terms of energy. A lot of waste goes on there. But it's essential to keep it warm because you've got vulnerable and sick people, just like you have small children in schools. So there's huge headaches for government in waiting at the moment.
Front page of the Daily Mail has Meghan Markle. Headline is, now Meghan drops her, inverted commas, truth bombs.
Yeah, it's an astonishingly narcissistic, navel-gazing, self-indulgent piece of trash.
But did you like it?
Interview. No. It really is a lot to take in. It starts off, it's a 6,500-word interview with a magazine in New York called The Cut. Takes place...
Did you say, sorry, how was that pronounced?
Was that? Yeah.
The Cut.
The Cut.
C-U-T,
yeah,
right.
C-U-T.
Yes,
There's no silent letters in this one. And it's this most gushing, ridiculous interview where she's at her £11 million mansion. She says it's about truth bombs, but I think it's completely exploded in her face. There's an astonishing litany of allegations. First of all, Harry is saying, I lost my dad in this process, which implies it was Prince Charles. There's been a dramatic backpedaling from Team Markle. They're now saying, actually, it's her dad that she lost. She says that she was approached by a person in South Africa who compared the royal wedding to the release of Mandela from jail. And what kind of narcissistic imbecile do you have to be to compare your wedding to Nelson Mandela's release? But the most alarming...
people were happy for her wedding.
So was I. I think we all were.
Yeah.
I think as a nation we all were. And this nonsense ever since that we've been unwelcoming and racist, I think is grotesque and sinister. And actually, Eamonn, you and I briefly talked about this. I think the worst and the most serious allegation in this interview, she maintains that members of the British media called her and her children the N-word. Now, who? Where's the proof?
She has to name names on that.
Because that is an horrendous allegation of the most serious nature. You can't just drop those sort of things and not back it up. What we're seeing is, 25 years on from the death of Princess Diana, the People's Princess, we have this pampered, preening princess. And I think it just goes to show how low the rules have fallen.
But when she did that shocking interview with Oprah Winfrey and she said somebody in the royal family had questioned what her child was going to look like in terms of skin colour and the allegations of racism there, they were she never said who it was. And do you think perhaps come up with a formula that this generates headlines, it generates interest, and she can make these allegations because, they're shocking, but she doesn't have to back them up.
I think furthermore, to question the allegation or to ask for proof is in itself deemed as a racist viewpoint. And here we have this situation where you're allowed to accuse people of the worst kind of words and not naming the source. I think it's grotesque.
Ella, do you have anything to add to that? Any observations?
Well, as someone who's not got a huge amount of love for the royal family, you might think that I'd welcome Meghan's wanton destruction of them. But I think it just says something more. Martin's right, it says something more about the nature of the way in which the royals are seen. It's become more like a celebrity, helped by the fact that Meghan is acting like, and Harry, indeed, I think the two of them are in it together, are acting like this is some kind of performance from La La Land. Whereas, in the UK, people might see the role of the royal family as more serious. But I think, across the board, they're acting more like petulant celebrities than they are a firm with a role in politics and moral life.
She's got no sense of self-deprecation or humour at all.
Or duty.
But I just think the way to deal with her is to really laugh at her.
Yeah, I think she is an absurd pantomime character now. But the thing is, we all would love to ignore her, but she won't go away. She just won't stop giving these big exclusive interviews, even though she said she wants her privacy back. Well, have your privacy back and zip it.
But isn't the bit where she asked the interviewer to write down the sounds she was making when she didn't use words? I mean, what kind of request? I mean, you've interviewed some pretty loopy people in your time, Eamonn, haven't you? With some weird riders and all the rest of it. But that's got to be up there.
The thing is that I always say, Isabel and Martin, is that they are enabled by the people around them. You really have got to tap into that Hollywood, LA, film star, the courtiers that are around them, and that enable them to believe they are who they are and that they can have anything. And I think always it's summed up with Meghan Markle. She was not born to serve. She was born for people to serve her. And that is where she has fallen out with the ethos of the royal family. I mean, I'm still laughing at the idea that she said to the firm, hey, here's an idea. Why don't Harry and I go off and rule New Zealand or Canada or whatever and just make us king and queen of Canada and we'll all be happy. That'll be fine. She just doesn't get it. No. This is her biggest acting role or movie role that she's ever had, and boy, is she making the most of it. Ella, right, let's get back to you. Listen, very interesting here, because we've got a headline in front of the Daily Mail, and they're talking, I don't think it is the Daily Mail, actually. No,
it's the Times. Over there.
Yeah, and it's talking about rush to drill for more oil in the North Sea. Will this help us?
Well, having just spent 2 minutes slating Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak for not having any ideas, the one thing that has come out of the leadership contest, it has been a questioning of the dominance of sort of green environmentalist policies particularly in the Conservative Party throughout the last few years, not helped by Boris Johnson making it part of his kind of pet project to be Mr. Green. And so it's suggested, or alleged at least, that Truss is going to invite new applications for drilling licences for oil in the North Sea, something that has had a kind of kibosh been put on it because of the focus on, or because of the kind of creation of the idea that oil or energy or any kind of fracking or anything like this is sort of evil and foul and has to be stopped in pursuit of the saving of the planet. But of course, we're sitting on we're sitting on a significant amount of natural resources that aren't being used at the moment that could be used. This wouldn't drop energy prices next year, but it's important to say that there's, as well as the kind of looking at what's happening in the immediate term, there has to be plans for energy production in the long term, whether that be fracking, whether that be getting oil out of the ground. The question is whether or not it will be domestically used or whether it will be used in the global market.
It's not even a question. It will be automatically sold on the international commodities market, and then British consumers will have to pay to buy back our own oil.
A really interesting thing is that the Times quotes that a YouGov poll shows that half of Tory voters now support renationalisation. So there are movements in terms of the way in which we use energy.
But there's also money that will be fed into the exchequer, which in the short term, obviously, they need to pay for everything that they are paying. Guys, got to leave it there. See the guys again, Ella and Martin, in 40 minutes' time. Bring you up to date with what's happening in news now. The time, 10 minutes to 7. A 21-year-old man has died after being stabbed at the Notting Hill Carnival. More than 200 arrests were made. Metropolitan Police say officers were called to the Ladbroke Grove area last night. That man died in hospital. 209 arrests have been made.
Boris Johnson has said that the deadly floods in Pakistan are heartbreaking as the death toll passed 1,060. The Queen has written to Pakistan's president saying she's deeply saddened by the tragic loss of life and the UK is sending support.
Andy Murray through to the second round of the US Open. Former world number one won his first straight sets victory in 5 years. The current US Open champion, Emma Raducanu, who was the women's champion, will start her title defence later today. We are delighted to welcome into the studio Spot of Cooking with the time at 10 minutes to 7 here, because this could be cooking your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, whatever it is. And friend of the show and top chef Theo Michaels joins us now. Very good to see you, Theo.
And you?
Because Theo and obviously cooking and economically cooking is very, very important to so many of you. But Theo has a book called Microwave Mug Meals, right? What do you mean by microwave mug meals, and how can this?
So this was my first book, which was I think 7 years ago, and it was all about cooking food in the microwave in mugs, microwave mug meals.
Shock horror. Just wait. I mean, like straight away, I'm thinking, here you are, an incredible chef. Last time we had you on, you were talking about making food from tinned food that was actually delicious, and you surprised me then, and you broke down all the barriers. This time, here you are talking as an amazing celebrity chef, talking about microwave mug meals.
So this is, and I can see your faces, but there's this connotation of, oh no, the microwave.
Yeah.
But when I first decided to take on the book, and again, this was 7 years ago, I guess, and the idea was, let's look at the microwave as just another appliance. It's just another cooking appliance. And actually, it was brilliant, because when you start to get into using the microwave and you get into the guts of it, so the way a microwave works is it shakes molecules, and that friction creates heat. So for some things, the microwave is fantastic at. For some things, it's terrible.
Right, OK.
You can't get anything crunchy or crispy out of a microwave, right?
OK.
But what you can do is use it as a really good steaming device.
Yes, you could do your broccoli in there and it comes out beautifully.
This is it, and it maintains the nutrients, right? You're steaming it.
That's absolutely key, because my parents hugely anti-microwaves growing up, and I never used or touched one until my early 30s. And I just was indoctrinated that if you use a microwave, all the nutrients get zapped. But I have subsequently learned that for things like broccoli, it's OK.
Well, you think if it was that connotation of, if you use the microwave, you're going to walk away with a slight glow.
Radioactive.
You're going to glow, as you're going to be glow in the dark. But no, it's great. So things like steaming fish, phenomenal.
Is it?
So you're looking, what we're looking at here, this is a cottage pie. right?
Yeah, so so this concept of like cost of living crisis and cooking things quicker and cheaper with the appliance. So that's onions and garlic.
Oh, right.
Right, so we did a cottage pie. So this is the base, some onions and garlic, cooked in the microwave, we put some mince in there, and we had some of the usual suspects. So we've got some flour in there, we've got some chicken stock
It doesn't dry
granules.
out or anything, the mince?
No, so we add a splash of water.
Okay.
And actually, it's funny you say that because the reverse happens in the microwave.
Right,
because
so
it steams and you cover,
Oh, yeah.
actually it keeps things really, really moist.
God, this is mind-blowing, honestly.
I mean, I did this last night, and it was great because
Did you bring any in? Did you bring any in?
I didn't bring any in. The kids nailed this. The kids all nailed it last night. But there's a few cheats. So, for instance, browning meat, that's where you get a lot of the caramelisation, right? You get lots of flavour from that. You can't do it in the microwave. So a little spoonful of Marmite is the cheat. It gives you that sort of depth. Oh,
Did you do that
Look at that beautiful face.
Look at that.
Look at that. Well chuffed.
And did you do your mash in the microwave as well?
So yeah, and again, mashed potatoes in the microwave. So if you're on the hob and you've got the gas burning or you've got an electric hob, you're using lots of energy, in the microwave, in that video there, we diced up the potato really small, splash of water, 5 minutes in the microwave or less than that, and it was mushy. And so you mash it like normal mashed potato.
Blowing my mind.
It's fun.
It's because you have actually researched it and there's been experimentation with this, trial and error involved in this, obviously, as you've gone along to create this. But what you're telling me now, and this is what's very, very important for the cost of living crisis, you're using less power to do what you're doing. You're using less dishes. There's less washing up involved in all of this. But importantly of all, it tastes fine. It's all good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You can't use a microwave for everything because some stuff just doesn't come out great.
So tell us the no-nos, because obviously you're saying things don't come out crispy. So obviously you don't do your bacon or your sausages if you want crispy stuff.
This is it. And large bits of meat, that doesn't really work very well.
No good.
Croissants, you'll get about 30 seconds and then they become like concrete. But things that you would naturally steam, so fish, so vegetables, things like that, the potatoes and stuff like that, things that naturally are steamed are brilliant in the microwave.
How would you steam a slab of salmon, for example, in the microwave?
So, salmon on a plate, a tablespoon of water, that's it. Cover it with cling film or a plate if you don't want the extra waste. 2 minutes, and it comes out flaky, falls off.
What about a bit of teriyaki sauce or something on there?
Perfect, Isabel. You've got the invite for dinner straight away.
Honestly.
I love that.
But whatever you do, don't wrap it in tin foil or it'll come out in flames. The kitchen will blow up.
And don't stand outside the microwave with a tinfoil hat on either, protect yourself from radiation.
Goodness.
No.
It's fine.
So that's all there, and that's in your book, Microsoft... What do you call it?
Bill Gates.
Right, easy steps to Microsoft. So that was microwave mug meals, which I think you can still get. But there's a new book coming out. I'm jumping in on a plug here. That will be out this October, which is Grazing and Feasting Boards. So that's a brand new one for this October.
Okay.
Theo, always
Come
lovely
and talk to us about that with a board. Why don't you? In the
I will do.
Find his board. Where's the food? The last time you came in with food.
That's what I mean. Your grazing board. That's
all
right. I've got you covered.
It's just made me hungry now.
I know, me
Theo,
too.
always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, guys.
And thanks for teaching us so much there.
I'm going to poach my fish in there.
Poach it.
Not only about cooking, but about saving money as well. Thank you.
That's what it's all about.
Thank you very much indeed. We'll take the break back right after this.
Infotainment, man.
The UK is looking mostly dry with some sunny spells, although often cloudy in the east. Let's take a look at the details. Well, the southwest of England will have a largely sunny afternoon, allowing it to feel pleasantly warm for most. However, winds will still be brisk across the moors and along the coast. Southeast England and East Anglia, though, will be rather cloudy at times, with cloud thick enough in places to produce a few showers. Wales, however, will see plenty of sunshine across the country with just a little fair weather cloud bubbling up from time to time. The West Midlands will also see some good spells of sunshine this afternoon. However, further east, skies will tend to be cloudier and it will also be feeling cool in the east thanks to the northeasterly breeze. After a grey morning and cloudy across northern England, this afternoon will be much brighter and sunnier. However, the far north may once again see a fair bit of cloud. Scotland, though, will see a fair bit of cloud, with only the far west and far north seeing some spells of sunshine. Dry for most, though, although the odd spot of rain is possible. It should be dry across Northern Ireland this afternoon, with a mix of cloud and sunny spells, the best of which will be in the west of the country. Heading into the evening, and many parts staying dry, with daytime cloud beginning to melt away. And that is how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The summer of strikes continues as thousands of BT and Openreach workers walk out over pay.
Hello there, very good morning. Good to see you just after 7 o'clock. It's Tuesday, the 30th of August. A very good morning to you. You're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster. Thanks for your company.
And here's what's leading the news this morning. 40,000 BT and Openreach staff are striking today in a dispute over pay. It comes as the union organising the industrial action also prepares to stage the mass walkout of over 100,000 postal workers tomorrow.
In a new tell-all interview, Meghan Markle has claimed that she left Britain with Prince Harry because their existence upset the dynamic of the hierarchy.
It's been 1 year since the final Western flight left Kabul, officially ending the 20-year war in Afghanistan, with the country handed back to Taliban rule.
Thank you very much indeed for getting in touch today. So many opinions on so many subjects. Basically, a lot of you saying, John saying, just out of interest, when inflation drops back to around 2%, will the unions urge their members to return some of the inflation-busting wage demands? Well, of course they won't, John. And it does amaze me sometimes how unsympathetic people are to other people's plight, how they're being underpaid, overused, just abused in so many ways, and that's not the way so many people see it. People are greedy for other people's good fortune or other people earning more.
Well, John says the cost of living affects everyone equally. Most people don't have powerful unions fighting for them.
Yes, but that's their fault.
Apart from pay being, it's not necessarily their fault.
No, it is their fault. This is my point.
Well, they
if
might
you
not
were
work in an industry
unionised,
that is unionised.
if you were unionised and more people worked towards unions, surely they would be in a better position as regards their employment, their pay and their conditions. Just putting it out there. Those of you who disagree with unions may actually need them. Maybe you're slightly jealous that you're not represented by a union as well. Just for the debate, and the debate is GB Views at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GB News.
And you can subscribe to the GB News channel on YouTube to get all the latest on the big stories everyone's talking about. So to our top story this morning, Britain's summer of strikes continues as 40,000 workers at BT and Openreach leave their posts in a dispute over pay.
Well, this is the latest in a wave of strikes that is sweeping the country. More to come as we head into the autumn. Tomorrow, we'll see the CWU union stage another strike of Royal Mail staff. 100,000 workers involved in that walkout.
More mail strikes are then planned on the 8th and 9th of September, and this all comes as refuse workers in Scotland agree they'll continue to strike next week after rejecting the latest pay offer from the local authority, despite returning to work in Edinburgh today.
Yeah, so what they're looking for in Scotland is they're looking for a 3,000 quid across the board payment to their members. Now, there you saw the rail strikes there, and the union boss, Mick Lynch, has also promised further strikes on the rails in the coming weeks following the walkouts in July and August. So that one hasn't been settled. It is not going away.
And another one, criminal barristers, they're beginning an indefinite strike from the 5th of September, so next week, increasing the already severe backlog in the justice system.
With us now to look at the ramifications of the strike, senior political editor at the publication Insider, Kat Neelan, here as well. So, Kat, since we last spoke last week, more strikes, it's growing.
Yeah, it seems like we're going to be coming into sort of general strike territory, and yet more evidence that this is the kind of winter of discontent style 1970s all over again.
Which sort of strikes me, as it were, that employers should be looking to settle early. They don't want employers, it's not in their interest for all of these strikes to join up.
Absolutely. I mean,
and it's not in the government's interest.
You know, looking at what's happening in Scotland, even once the refuse workers go back to work, they're going to be picking up the pieces from that. You know, you've got lots of vermin now running around the city that are going to be looking for new homes.
You see, that situation, that has to be settled. I mean, it just has to be settled.
Yeah.
And I think rather that has got to look at central government funding, I suppose, as to, you know, if the money is available. And that's what this comes back to, which comes back to this drilling for oil in the North Sea and whatever. It's not really about the environment and it's not about energy security. It's about simply raising taxes in the short term for the exchequer.
If they can make a windfall tax out of it, all the better. But in all of this, it's coming down to inflation, right? And the problem with getting a pay rise is that stokes inflation. So even if you get this increase, which the unions are calling for in their pay packet, it won't go as far as they want it to go because by getting that pay increase, they've stoked inflation further. And it has to reach a point.
Yeah, but come on, Isabel. No, if we were sitting looking for more money now...
The problem is our energy bills are spiralling out of control and inflation is making things unaffordable.
Yes. So
and it shouldn't be ordinary people that are dealing with that
If you
problem.
were being offered a 2% rise by GB News, would you say, oh, well, I'm going to do it for the good of the country. I'm going to take a 2% even though inflation's at plus 10%.
Well, I've never managed to negotiate.
Is that what you would say?
No,
because I wouldn't.
Well, what I'm trying to say is I don't think it should have even got to this point. There needs to be serious discussions from Rishi Sunak, Liz Truss on how they're going to sort inflation out, because all that's happening is this is just going to spiral out of control. Even the Governor of the Bank of England said the same, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, what needs to be happening is a cap at the top to reduce the costs, but that doesn't seem possible or plausible at this stage. So instead, what we're dealing with is the consequences of that. Now, we saw over the weekend some talk about Liz Truss trying to cut VAT. Actually, I think that would be more inflationary than pay rises, because what you're doing then is you're encouraging people to spend more, and obviously VAT cuts tend to benefit the people that spend more, who are the higher earners. So I think there are different ways of trying to deal with this situation. Actually, you know, as Eamonn says, I'm not against people seeking a pay rise when we're dealing with double-digit inflation.
Nobody is. I mean, clearly nobody is opposed to a fair day's wage for a fair day's work, and we all understand that things are becoming unaffordable and people are making these awful decisions between eating and heating.
Yeah.
But I do come back to this argument that we are on this war footing. This is all caused by this war that's going on in Ukraine.
Yes, that may well be the case. That may well be the case, but I would like your opinion on this. The example that is being set by a lot of the directors and owners of these companies and the workers. So for instance, take the post office. They're an example. They've been offered 2% while shareholder dividends and whatever have been absolutely astronomical. The water companies, the salaries paid to the people at the top there are not just good, they're indecently good. So there is no relation. It's like footballers in the Premier League.
Yeah.
What the heck? How can anybody identify with a footballer in the Premier League on £350,000 a week?
And this is kind of the problem with the Royal Mail IPO that was always a bit of a mess to start off with. It was overvalued and it's been sort of problems ever since. And now we're looking at possible asset strippers coming in to take over, maybe foreign investors, foreign owners coming in to take over. And that will just mean more money taken out of the country, out of the system. The workers not being paid, but where's the benefit to the country? It doesn't seem to be there. And that's the same sort of situation that we've had with Felixstowe and many of the other companies.
But will the model be reinvented? I mean, the Felixstowe dockers, they're saying exactly the same. The company's been taking, still take, and they feel that working through the pandemic, there hasn't been any give to them. And all of this creates the perfect storm for the situation that we're in at the moment. But they're not going to reinvent capitalism, are they? Really?
No, but I do think the situation that we're in at the moment has been sort of a long time coming, and we're sort of, this is years in the making, these problems. So some sort of revision of what we do with our utilities and our essential companies, what kind of owners do we want? What kind of regulation do we want? I think there are going to have to be serious conversations about the type of ownership we have. Maybe it's not just a sort of free-for-all as we allow other companies to be owned by anyone, that there needs to be a bit more of a sort of an understanding that we have these particular needs, and these kind of companies need to have greater kind of oversight than they do at the moment.
Yeah, certainly big discussions to be had, and it does seem as though striking is going to become part and parcel of modern life.
It seems like it for the next few months. And, if I was one of the unions, I would be looking at the Conservative Party conference, for example, as a great opportunity to really sort of show some muscle. Edinburgh TV Festival, Edinburgh Fringe have been really disrupted by the bin strikes. And if I wanted to cause maximum impact and maximum chaos, that's probably what I would be looking to do.
Working for the unions.
I'm sure they're already got their eye on it.
We got the head of the CWU union on at 8 o'clock in 50 minutes' time. They're representing the postal workers, and talking to him just at 8 o'clock this morning.
And for more on the BT strike specifically, which is the one that's happening today, along with Openreach, 40,000 of those on strike, we can speak to our man in the Midlands, Will Hollis. He joins us from the BT Centre in Lincoln. Bring us up to date on what I think is the second strike for BT workers, isn't it?
Yeah, you're completely right, Isabel. And just to go back to something that you said earlier this morning, Eamonn, around 6 o'clock, you said, what's the difference between Openreach and what's the difference between BT? BT is the large part of the company, the biggest telecoms provider in the UK. Openreach does all of the infrastructure, so no matter what telecom provider you're using, you're also using the engineering infrastructure operated by Openreach. And that's why you're going to see some impact today and tomorrow to do with these BT and Openreach strikes. Let's bring it back to what you were just saying there, though, Isabel. This is the second wave of strikes that are going to go on today and tomorrow for these BT and Openreach workers. Back at the end of July, that was the first strike of this sort for BT since 1987, for 35 years. And if you remember the Felixstowe port strikes as well, that was the first strike for a similar amount of time. So these sorts of strikes haven't been happening for a very long time, but now they are coming in quick succession. It is because disputes are breaking down, negotiations aren't working out, and this particular one, well, it wasn't really a negotiation. BT said that they were going to offer 5%. That was awarded back in April. The CWU, the Communication Workers Union, say that they'd like something much more in line with inflation, so around 10%. That seems to be the really big driving force, that inflation figure, that cost of living figure. When you're looking at things like the Ofgem price cap, which was announced last week, £3,500 for the average family, that seems to be what's driving this season of strikes. Now, what's going to be the impact today? Of course, we mentioned the infrastructure, so if you have an infrastructure problem, that might not get looked at today or tomorrow. It might be a little bit delayed. If you find yourself calling a call centre, you might find that nobody's actually working in that call centre, so your problem might be delayed. What BT say, though, is that they're working to minimise disruption in all sorts of ways. And because of the 2 years of the pandemic, they've got resilience processes in place, and any non-essential engineering work is going to be delayed.
All right, well, thank you very much indeed. Now, are you ready for some truth bombs?
Well, these are truth bombs according to Meghan Markle, which is her truth. She is also the Duchess of Sussex, and she's given another bombshell interview.
Yeah, this time it's to the online website, The Cut magazine. And in the interview, she said that her very presence in the UK upset the hierarchy of the royal family. She also claimed that unspecified members of the British media used the N-word to refer to
Which
her
is
children.
a pretty awful thing to do. I mean, it's like it's accusing somebody of a vile crime but not naming anyone behind it. Can you actually believe what she says? Because however bad, you know, many reporters may well be, I, for the life of me, cannot imagine that being common currency in terms of language. However, this is her truth, this is her experience. We go now to our showbiz reporter in LA, Kinsey Schofield, on this one for her thoughts. Kinsey, good morning to you. We've already discussed the hat, so we'll let that go. But she's lifting the lid on a few things here. My problem with Meghan Markle is, can you actually believe her?
I think that's a great question. Saying somebody called her child an N-word is very similar to saying that there's a racist in the royal family and not naming that person. So for a year now, we've tried to figure out who the royal racist is within the royal family. We have no idea. And now we're going to be trying to figure out who might have said something salacious about. It's like she puts things out there that it's really difficult to prove. What I will say is, here are some of the biggest takeaways from this interview with The Cut. Meghan compares herself to Nelson Mandela, says that after the birth of Archie, she went and saw the Lion King musical, and one of the actors pulled her aside and said, when you married Prince Harry, we rejoiced in the streets like we did with Nelson Mandela. So that's insane. She says that Prince Harry has lost Prince Charles as a father. This was in reaction to the reporter asking her about her relationship with Thomas Markle, you know, a way for her to divert attention away from her own drama in her family. She jumped up and said, well, Harry feels like he's lost his father too throughout this process. And she says that she's still trying to forgive the royal family, which a lot of people have a hard time with, because the royal family, if they say anything about the couple, which is rarely, it's that they are very loved members of the royal family. The royal family has been very kind to them verbally and in the public since the Oprah interview.
So interesting reading much of the commentary here in the UK about this interview from royal commentators who said that this was just the most bizarre, narcissistic interview. At one point, she asked the interviewer to transcribe the guttural sounds she was making in response to questions rather than words coming out. I mean, what an extraordinary thing.
So just explain
to
our viewers and
there would be a question
listeners.
from the interviewer, and she would go, write this down.
Isabel, it's not just that. She also said when the interviewer asked her about her relationship with Tyler Perry, which we actually don't know a lot about, Meghan briefly answered about her relationship with Tyler Perry and how he bought them a piano so that they could write their own love stories and so they could write their future. And then she says, but I talked about that in the Oprah interview. And the interviewer says that she did like a deep smile and waved like, next question. I mean, really, who has control over interviews like that? She's obviously, as I think we've talked about this before, controlling the narrative is very important to her.
Who is Tyler Perry? Was he in Friends or something?
Tyler Perry is the man that lent them his house and security team when they moved from Canada to America. He is a multi-million-dollar actor and producer, one of the biggest Black entertainers we have. He's just an incredible man. Bought Tiffany Haddish a car. He's got the biggest heart. He's a very good man here in the States.
What about the timing of all of this? Because, of course, it is the 25th anniversary of the passing of Princess Diana. A really sad time for the brothers, William and Harry. All, I think, the front of 2 newspapers this morning discussing these new comments by Meghan. Adding pain to a difficult week, do you think it's fair to say, for Charles and for William?
I do. I think that this seems really unfair. And I don't know if her PR team and the Sussexes looked at a calendar and said this would be a great time to launch all of these initiatives, because as I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Mariah Carey episode, a podcast episode of Archetypes, is supposed to drop today as well. Or they thought, you know, Princess Diana's face, she's going to be on the cover of a lot of magazines. Let's get Meghan on the cover of some magazines too, so that there are comparisons made. I don't know what the ultimate objective is, but it does feel like Meghan's trying to hijack this really delicate, sensitive time. And it's not just the sons mourning. I see people online that say they mourn every year around this time because it was a devastating loss to them, the death of Princess Diana.
Kinsey, it's very interesting. I mean, with their forthcoming visit or invasion of Britain looming, the more controversial she is, the more people criticise her, which then gives her more ammunition to say, poor me, at the end of all of this. Oh. I mean, she is a professional victim, is she not?
That's the truth. And can we just take a step back and look at everything she has contributed, everything she has said since Megxit? Meghan Markle has nothing to say. Talk to us about your values. Talk to us about the future you envision for this country. Talk to us about what is love, because apparently you and Prince Harry have it. Describe that for us. What's it like to be a mom? Meghan is one of the most blessed individuals in the world, in the entire world. Hallmark actress turned member of the royal family. It is the ideal movie. And all she does is complain about her in-laws, who literally put her on the map.
Absolutely, gosh. All right, Kinsey, always lovely to get your take on things. Thanks for joining us. And I like your hat, for the record. I think it looks lovely.
I love you, Isabel.
I didn't like it.
You said, what is that on your head?
I didn't know it was a hat.
What did you think it was?
I thought it was a muffin or a pancake or something.
Anyone listening on the radio, it's what sort of hat would you describe that as, Kinsey?
Is it like one of those golf visors? Is it? Does your hair come out behind it? Oh, it's a cap. It is an actual cap.
It's a little newsboy's cap.
It's lovely.
Well, if you say so.
It's a dog tooth hook type style. I'm not selling it, but it looks beautiful.
Lindsay,
anyway,
thanks for everything, Kinsey. What we're going to do is we're going to get viewer reaction to all of this, which we'll reflect later in the programme. So you want to be... Meghan has spoken out. You have your say. Join the discussion. gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet.
Can I just say,
GB News.
Speaking her truth, that's something that really winds me up.
Yeah.
There is one truth.
So you can be a lie.
You can speak your experience of life, but there is only one truth, because that is truth.
A psychopath, for instance, a psychopath can say anything and they believe it. So they would pass a lie detector, for instance, because their truth, they believe their truth.
It's a very,
and I've met a few in life.
It's not a criticism of Meghan. I think it is a very American phrase, speaking your truth. But it really gets my goat.
Yeah. What about shut your mouth, Meghan? What about that? Is that better than speaking your truth?
Stop it now. I mean, she could do that.
But that's what people at home are thinking. Thinking, why doesn't she just shut up and go away?
Or if you want to talk about something that's, not
positive. As
whinging.
Kinsey was great there. She summed that up. I mean, she's got so much to be thankful for. Move on, Meghan. Yeah. Move on. Is it really that bad in your life? And if you're going to make accusations about people, name the people involved, because I think so few people see the colour of your skin. So few people want to discriminate against you. So many people were happy when you got married and when you joined the royal family. Where did it all go wrong? And how much blame have you got to take for that? 22 minutes past 7.
Right, let's bring you up to date on the latest headlines this hour. A 21-year-old man has died after being stabbed at the Notting Hill Carnival. More than 200 arrests were made at the event. The Metropolitan Police say officers were called to the Ladbroke Grove area last night. The man died later in hospital. 209 arrests were made at the event in total over the whole weekend, including 46 for assault and 33 for possessing an offensive weapon.
Boris Johnson has said the deadly floods in Pakistan are heartbreaking as the death toll passed 106,000, I think it is. This year's flooding has affected more than 33 million people, 1 in 7 Pakistanis, according to the National Disaster Management Authority. The Queen has written to Pakistan's president saying she's deeply saddened by the tragic loss of life.
NASA hopes to schedule a second launch attempt for the Artemis 1 moon rocket for this Friday. An engine cooling problem forced scientists to postpone yesterday's planned launch. However, engineers hope to resolve the issue in the next 48 to 72 hours. Now, as we've been discussing, strikes will continue into the autumn as workers campaign for higher pay in the face of rising inflation. So, with the Conservative leadership election set to come to an end in the next 6 days, what should the next Prime Minister do about this continuing wave of industrial action? Well, joining us now to discuss this and the rest of the political issues of the day is Richard Holden MP, who is from Team Rishi. Good morning to you. Look, we've heard Rishi Sunak speaking extensively throughout the leadership contest about his concerns about any measure that could stoke inflation. We've heard the Governor of the Bank of England saying that pay rises would do just that. So is he opposed then to all of the industrial action that is planned for this autumn? And if so, what will he be saying to the unions?
Hi there, Isabel. I think what Rishi wants to see, and I think most of us want to see this actually across the board, is proper negotiated settlements of these issues. I think, unfortunately, what we're seeing at the moment from some of the union leadership, not the members, but the leadership, is some of these are being used as more of a political weapon than they are as a part of a pay dispute or a dispute with the employer. And I think what we've got to see now is those issues, hopefully the heat taken out of them after the end of the Conservative leadership contest, and then those disputes resolved properly. Rishi has already committed, and Liz, to be fair to her, has committed the same, that we will see some of that legislation brought forwards to stop these unnecessary actions taking place, and I'll be supporting that in Parliament. It was part of our manifesto to get those things sorted out, to restrict some of these things and ensure that we get actually essential services are maintained at least at some level during the pandemic, during strikes. And like we had during the pandemic. And what I would like to see is that legislation brought forwards quickly. But we have to stop this militancy from some elements of the unions who see themselves as part of the political opposition to the Conservative government, rather than actually standing up for their members.
Richard, I want to ask you about many of the headlines this morning referring to the economist who's backing Liz Truss's view on the economy, Professor Patrick Minford. He's been talking about how if Liz Truss gets to cut corporation tax and indeed national insurance rise, we could see growth at 2.4% by the middle of this decade, by 2025. That sounds great.
Well, I think the truth on that is that what we've seen is Liz hanging on to the plans of the last 10 years, which is that corporation tax rate, just for the top 10% largest businesses, actually, of 19%. And we've not seen the investment. And the only way you create real long-term growth in wages and in profits is for better productivity. At the moment, we're having that argument because between shareholders and employees. And what I want to see is everybody benefiting from the growing economy. But that won't be any good if we see inflation rising. I spoke to one of my constituents the other day who said to me, Richard, they said they wouldn't mind to see 8% interest rates, but they did say that what would be a real issue for them is 18% inflation, because they'd be losing 10% of their savings every year. And they also said for their children, it'd be a massive issue seeing those interest rates at that sort of level. And what I think the absolute priority of the next government needs to be is to get inflation down and keep interest rate rises as low as possible, because that's what's going to really help us get out of this problem. Otherwise, we'll see lots of small businesses who I've spoken to recently really struggling with energy bills now. Yeah. But if they started to see interest rates rising on money that they've borrowed or borrow on their mortgages, and they would see absolute catastrophe in this country.
Yeah, and look, targeted measures clearly very much the approach that Team Rishi want to pursue in all of this. And I just wanted to get, before we finish the interview, your thoughts on these licences that Liz Truss is suggesting could be rushed through to enable more drilling to take place in the North Sea. Who would that benefit? Would that be targeted benefiting British people? Would we see more domestic supply, more domestic security for energy? Or would that just line the pockets of the big energy giants like Shell and I was going to say BT then, Total or BP?
What we need to see across the world is more supply, and I'm glad that we're looking at this. Having said that, around 113 licences, I would think, were granted just a couple of years ago. So I think we need to see a real step change in this, rather than just tinkering at the edges. And that's got to be, I think, a renewed look at fracking. We have to also really turbocharge insulation of homes, so that this winter might be difficult, might need short-term support, but we won't see it prolonging into the future. But we have to get inflation down. If not, we'll end up in a really difficult situation with prices rising and everybody getting poorer. So that's got to be the top priority: get inflation down and support families through these energy issues we're facing. And that's going to be in the long term with proper switches in terms of energy production, but also working internationally to try and deal with Russia, because at the moment they're trying to use this as a weapon, and we have to defeat them in Ukraine.
OK, Conservative MP Richard Holden from Team Rishi, thanks for joining us this morning.
With that, we'll take a break. Back with the sport, US Open tennis, Andy Murray, and the transfer goings on as we head towards deadline day right after this.
The UK is looking mostly dry with some sunny spells, although often cloudy in the east. Let's take a look at the details. Well, the southwest of England will have a largely sunny afternoon, allowing it to feel pleasantly warm for most. However, winds will still be brisk across the moors and along the coast. Southeast England and East Anglia, though, will be rather cloudy at times, with cloud thick enough in places to produce a few showers. Wales, however, will see plenty of sunshine across the country, with just a little fair weather cloud bubbling up from time to time. The West Midlands will also see some good spells of sunshine this afternoon. However, further east, skies will tend to be cloudier, and it will also be feeling cool in the east, thanks to the northeasterly breeze. After a grey morning and cloudy across northern England, this afternoon will be much brighter and sunnier. However, the far north may once again see a fair bit of cloud. Scotland, though, will see a fair bit of cloud, with only the far west and far north seeing some spells of sunshine. Dry for most, though, although the odd spot of rain is possible. It should be dry across Northern Ireland this afternoon, with a mix of cloud and sunny spells, the best of which will be in the west of the country. Heading into the evening, and many parts staying dry, with daytime cloud beginning to melt away. And that is how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back at 7:32. Still to come on this morning's programme.
Well, in 15, 20 minutes' time, fish and chip shops under threat. Jeff Moody has been looking into how the rising cost of oil, energy and fish itself is forcing many chip shops to go under.
And at 8 o'clock, as BT and Openreach workers strike today, we'll be speaking to the General Secretary of the Communication Workers Union. That's Dave Ward.
You can join in any of our discussions, what you've got to say about the unions, what you've got to say about the strikes, what you've got to say about Meghan Markle today.
Lots of emails. Should we quickly read a couple? Yeah. Lara says, I support Meghan all the way. The press has treated her disgustingly. The knives were out the day she married. Not everyone hates her. Another one's coming in saying the only N-word used in relation to Meghan is the word narcissist.
Okay. Bernard says, I'm a retired detective. I'm in my mid-70s. I have the problem of keeping my wife warm and food on the table. Will someone show Meghan Markle how fortunate she is? Keep that coming in. Right, now the sports situation, and we're going to have a quick look at the back pages. First of all, the Daily Express reporting that Chelsea are set to pass the £200 million barrier in transfer spending today. I don't know why we're looking at you, Paul, but...
Every time. Handsome doll.
Right, well, we haven't got the paper, so let's just talk about it. Right, the first thing we're going to do then, Paul, is Chelsea. We were talking about them. There's a number of transfers they've got lined up. So what have you got to say? Fofana, looks like the deal's done between Leicester and him.
Yeah, Fofana then, we're looking at Leicester. He's been made to train with the under-23s because, I mean, he's a really good player, but he doesn't want to be at Leicester anymore, and it's player power. He wants to move to Chelsea. Chelsea want him. They're just trying to work out what the deal's going to be, and it's just, we're looking probably, he's an 80, 90 million pound footballer. So apparently we've got the second medical is going ahead, so that looks like that's going to go through. Obviously, we've only got 2 days until the close of the window.
Yeah, but Chelsea are busy. I mean, they're also, whether Aubameyang's going to go from Barcelona to Chelsea or not, they're very heavily interested in him.
See, this is an interesting one. You know, are they going to get a striker in? And we're looking at Aubameyang. He played at Dortmund with Thomas Tuchel, so he knows him very well, and they've got a great relationship. Goes to Arsenal, that hasn't worked out. Then he's gone to Barcelona, so now it looks like he's going to move back to Chelsea. Is it going to work, isn't it? Yeah, it could well do. He's got a great relationship with the manager.
A proven track record.
Exactly. So I wouldn't be surprised if that one goes through as well. And a couple of other bits as well. Anthony, which has been dragging on forever.
From Ajax.
From Ajax to Manchester United. Looking at £75 million. It looks like that's going to happen. Martin Dubravka, Newcastle goalkeeper, who's now gone down to their number 2 because Nick Pope is coming. He looks like he's going to be coming into Manchester United. So whether it's going to be a loan and he's going to be then pushing David De Gea. So that's not a bad signing.
He'll not be pushing David De Gea. He's just there for cover.
Yeah, I know, but you know what David De Gea is like.
No, I mean, they had keepers that would push David De Gea, and the keeper's not at Forest, so that's not going to happen.
He's got a ricket in him, though, hasn't he, David?
But transfer deadline day is Thursday.
First, yeah.
Ronaldo, is he going to still be at United? Where's he going to be? What's the talk in the papers today?
It's pretty quiet, actually, about Ronaldo.
I heard Napoli.
The thing is, it's where he's going to go and who's going to pay the money and who's going to be prepared to take him. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Italy ends up where he's going. And also, it's how Manchester United feel about him. You know, he's on the bench. He doesn't want to be on the bench. You know, he looked like he was enjoying the game the other day. He looked like he was pumping his fist and showing a little bit of passion. But
he only had 20 minutes play.
I don't know. So we'll see. But something's going to give, and we'll probably find out in a couple of days.
Andy Murray through to the second round of the US Open's life in the old dog yet.
Francisco Cerundolo, Argentinian, and it was the first straight sets victory he's had in a Grand Slam in 5 years. It's his first ever straight sets victory in a Grand Slam with a metal hip. as well.
Is it?
It is. So it went pretty well. See, look, there he is playing there. There was an interesting thing that happened. There was a double bounce during the game. I think we might have footage of that. And obviously, you know, in a game of tennis, the ball can only bounce once. Cerundolo, there he is. That's just after the, obviously very, very passionate after winning the game. But Cerundolo goes down for a shot. The ball bounces twice.
Okay, we're going to see it here.
This is it. There we are. So it's there. Now, look. So then you'll probably see, there's Andy Murray there with his arms up and say, you know, what's going on? What's going on? There was a double bounce. He's not happy about it. And there it is there. Now, it's very difficult to be able to see that. I would have thought that's absolutely fine. But the ball does hit the ground twice.
How could Andy Murray even see that?
I know, but he did. But he said that it was the spin that he uses on that serve.
Yeah.
He knows the way the ball's going to bounce. So he had the idea that, yes, it's bounced twice. Cerundolo didn't say anything. Then it went on the big screen. The crowd all
Let's see it again. Let's run it again.
See if we can see it again. And it's really difficult to be able to tell. The crowd cheer. They're saying, look, it's a double bounce. Then Cerundolo put his hands up and said, look, I concede the point. And then Andy Murray said, what a great piece of sportsmanship it is, although he didn't really have much choice to actually concede.
So technology, we missed it there again.
Because there's no, you'll probably see the replay now, because there's no line judges.
Here we go.
There we are, there. It's really difficult to be able to tell.
Well, braver man than me to call that one.
Absolutely.
Emma Raducanu's playing today, her first outing.
Yeah, this is going to be a difficult game because obviously she's the holder.
Yeah.
She's going in against Elise Cornet, who beat Iga Swiatek at Wimbledon. She's got the record of the most consecutive appearances in Grand Slams, which is 63.
Yes.
She's not seeded, but she's probably the hardest non-seeded player that Emma Raducanu could actually face. So it's going to be tough. So she plays late tonight. And also, we should say as well that we had Serena Williams came through, 413th in the world. Serena is now. Everybody was there. Everybody was expecting that maybe she would lose. We can be there for the last game that she's ever played. But she came through against Danka Kovanic, 6-3, 6-3, and moves on.
OK, busy day in sport. Thank you very much indeed, Paul. Appreciate it. Thank you. After the break, we're going to be going through the newspapers with Emma Whelan and Martin Dobney. See you after this.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 7:41. It's that time in the programme where we go through your morning newspapers. Today, we're joined by the journalist and former MEP, Martin Daubney, and the columnist, Ella Whelan, to do just that. Good morning and welcome back to both of you. Martin, let's start with the front of the Telegraph, shall we? It's becoming increasingly apparent that the majority of the migrants crossing the Channel at the moment are Albanian, and now Albanian police are going to get involved to try and stop them reaching the UK.
Yeah, it's a rare moment and a welcome moment of common sense in the ongoing debacle to take back control of our borders. You must remember that's been one of the primary objectives of every national election since 2015. 25,000 illegals have come over the Channel already this year. That's twice the number of last year. And seemingly there's no power to stop, to return, to send boats back. In fact, the opposite happens. The RNLI and now private companies, we're about to hear from Ella, are ferrying people ashore in a taxi service. But this is a welcome piece of common sense. The General Director of the Albanian State Police has offered to send at least 2 coppers to Dover with their international database of biometrics and fingerprints of known criminals from Albania. And one of the huge debates around this was the blowing apart of the fact that these were people fleeing war zones. These are economic migrants, oftentimes with criminal backgrounds, and at last we will have the power to fast-track their deportation if they are believed to be a national threat or are not conducive to the public good. Now, the Albanians aren't doing this out of the goodness of their own heart. We've paid for £1 million new police station at their airport to aid the return, which I think is a fair piece of business. And also, they are after more money to beef up their DNA database, which is a win-win scenario as far as I can see.
Although I've just read the Border Force have said this would help us immensely, although that is assuming no data protection or legal issues would prevent the Albanian police from receiving biographic and biometric data captured by UK Border Force and UK law. You can just see there's going to be some sort of legal loophole.
Well, you would hope that common sense would prevail, and that is the UK government and the Albanian government will come to a bespoke and ad hoc agreement. But of course, this does once again leave open a loophole for the lawyers, the Human Rights Brigade to try and contest this. But I think this is a step in the right direction and precisely the sort of joined-up thinking we should be having between international governments to counteract one of the biggest issues of our time.
Ella, see this as a step forward?
Well, I think that whether you are in favour of a more liberal approach to immigration or a more conservative one, Martin is right that there is the question of the kind of taking back control of our borders, which was a central part of the Brexit vote, which isn't a sort of I never read it as an anti-immigrant sentiment, but more as a kind of a view of sovereignty, of that you would have, similarly in relation to laws.
Do you think most
and
people
politics.
saw it like that?
I think that there has the interesting thing about the discussion about immigration in this country is that we have never had an open and frank discussion about what kind of immigration system there should be. And in relation to the story on the front page of the Telegraph, a proportion of the people that are coming might be criminals, but it's also true that a large number of them are economic migrants, and that means they're young men predominantly who are coming in search of a better life. Now, whether the fact is they're doing that through illegal means, and so that might be the kind of clincher for some people. But it seems to me that there's an interesting thing going on, which is that we've got at the same time as this is happening, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak and others in the Conservative Party talking about increasing, talking about people coming over to help with labour shortages and things like that. And all I'm trying to say is it feels like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. And we have this very complicated view of immigration, of the kind of system we want, both in terms of asylum seeking, but also in terms of just what kind of people we will let in through the normal means. And I think it leaves us open to this kind of abuse and confusion.
And your view on this front page story on The Guardian, Home Office pays private firms to pick up migrants?
Yes, as Martin says, the problem with the Home Office, I think, is that everything that they do seems to be cack-handed, if I can put it that way. And they're paying huge amounts of money, more than £2.5 million, to these companies who are basically being contracted out to go and essentially do rescue missions. One of those being Aeolian Offshore, who has boats that are built and designed for about 15 people, who are being asked to, and the crew given a week or maybe a few days training, being asked to go out and rescue 100 or more people in one go, which is, both dangerous and, to put it lightly, stressful for the crew. But it's also the case that the Home Office is doing this at the same time that there was that big row last year about whether or not the RNLI should be doing similar things. Yeah. And it just seems incredibly unorganised that this is what's happening. We know that something has to be done because nobody on any side of the debate wants to see people die or drown.
Okay.
But the idea, this isn't sustainable, simply paying out money to very small crews to try and do what big boats need to be doing.
Right, there's a couple of things I want to talk about. Martin, again, we stay with The Guardian, page 7. This is about the cry from Boris Johnson to everybody to remain green because we're in the midst of climate change.
It's probably the only time in Boris Johnson's premiership The Guardian has actually agreed with him. And that is he's about to make an outward-going speech as he departs office, saying that the government must stick with net zero. Well, he's got his work cut out for him because Liz Truss wants to drill for more North Sea gas and shale and frack more. And she's against onshore solar panels. Rishi Sunak is also against more wind turbines. And I think this is a bunch of kind of green Tories feeling their power base slip away. This is the Net Zero Support Group, who are saying that the net zero crisis is about the cost of gas crisis, so renewables, wind, nuclear, insulation. And what happens here is, I've always thought, is Boris in charge or is Carrie in charge? A lot of people said that all along. I don't know where his kind of green credentials came from. He seemed to suddenly acquire them.
Did he? I was always on his bicycle. He introduced Boris bikes across London, one of the greenest...
Well, that was Ken Livingston's idea. He nicked it. He's good at nicking ideas, Boris.
What I'm saying is he's got a track record. This didn't just... I find Carrie allegate...
But I think we are at the point now where we must confess that the net zero agenda is a luxury belief system. It's not something that's going to get us out of this. And we need to go back to using more fossil fuels. We have to get our way out of this crisis.
What about the planet?
The planet, I think, is important. Of course,
what about your children and your children's children?
I'd rather my children not die of cold, and I'd rather my children not be freezing all winter, which I think will be happening to millions this winter.
I think it has to happen simultaneously. I think most sensible people understand that creating a greener, more efficient system, but the emphasis on the efficiency side of it is a good thing in terms of long-term planning for the planet, looking into nuclear, which actually Boris Johnson has made some kind of sounds and whispers around, which is welcome. But what's happened over the last sort of 10, 20 years is that energy production in terms of fossil fuels or anything like that has been characterised as is like worse than mud. It's disgusting, it's evil, it's terrible. And the fact of the matter is wind and solar does not meet our needs currently. And without nuclear, we are simply going cold. The two have to happen in tandem.
Ella, let's tie this into the front page of the Telegraph because it talks about working from home. So many people, great advocates. So let's not go into the office, let's work from home. Maybe think twice. Be careful what you wish for, according to this story.
Or it tells you something about the nature of who it is that likes to work at home. I think if I was being cruel, I'd say that I think most of the time, certainly throughout the pandemic, the narrative of how good working from home came from predominantly middle and upper middle class individuals who were able to enjoy the benefits of living from home without worrying about the energy bills. And the Telegraph reports that, for example, the average person could be paying £789 a month if they work from home, whereas if you go into the office, that falls to $580 because obviously you're not boiling your own kettle, you're not sticking your own heating on, and you're not opening your own fridge.
You do benefit from this energy price cap at home, whereas your office, your poor employer, doesn't benefit from that. And if all their employers come in to charge the phone, dry the hair, use the shower, boil the kettle, whatever it might be, coming in 5 days a week, they're picking up the tab.
We're working for them, so they're meant to put the heating on for us.
The whole point of the working from home boom was it was very beneficial to a certain demographic who chose to do so. They didn't have to pay train fares, sandwiches, all the rest of it. And now the heating will be going through the roof. They suddenly might want to get back to the office because even though you're right, the energy isn't capped by their employers, the employer will pay it. And so I think they were suddenly having a volte-face, do a U-turn. Actually, I think I might get back to the office. It's going to cost me too much to stay at home in my pyjamas.
We've been talking so much about these businesses that are just seeing their costs out of all proportion, making them non-viable come this winter because there is no cap on it. So many of these workers may end up losing their jobs because what would be spent on their salary will then be spent on these astronomical bills. We talked about the example yesterday of a pepper grower I think it was in Essex, and he spent about £900,000 a year heating his greenhouses. He made £5 million profit, so around £1 million a year spent on heating his greenhouses. His bill this autumn projected to go up to £15 million, straight away out of business.
Yeah. We know that working from home also does cost jobs. I mean, central London is still kind of zombie land, and we know that, you know, if you're working... Martin mentioned sandwiches. If you're working from home, you're not going out to have a pint after work, you're not going out to buy your lunch.
You might do, just at home.
But there's the people have sort of scratched their heads as to why Pretz and pubs are shutting down in central London, and this is why.
Yeah. Right, Ella, we've got to leave it there. Martin's got to leave it. See you again in 40 minutes' time. We're going to continue the theme now of going out of business, because if you treated yourself to fish and chips over the weekend, you might have noticed a significant price increase.
Yeah, not just the price of oil, because we've talked about that a lot, but also the price of the fish itself. It means many local chippies are struggling for survival.
Well, the main thing is heating their fryers. The National Federation of Fish Fryers has even warned that a chippy tea could soon be a thing of the past. Our Southwest of England reporter Jeff Moody with this report.
A British bank holiday weekend. Fish and chips, salt and vinegar, mushy peas, curry sauce. Our chippy teas are as British as Yorkshire pudding.
It's always been a thing. When you go to the seaside, you have your rock, you have your fish and chips, you can hear the seagulls.
Yeah, but it was always better in newspaper. Years ago, when I was growing up, it was a poor man's meal. Now, just bought 2 lots of fish and chips, 23 quid.
But why is our erstwhile national dish now so expensive?
The fish prices have gone up extortionately. The oil prices have gone up extortionately, and everything across the whole spectrum that we sell have gone up extortionately. So we're finding it a struggle to keep our prices reasonable and competitive.
I mean, it's all right for me to go in there and get one portion for myself, but that was £11 just for one person.
It's a lot of money, isn't it?
So can you imagine, you know, you've got a group of 5 or 6, that's probably more expensive than going to a restaurant.
The National Federation of Fish Fryers believes the industry could be on the verge of extinction. They've been pressing for help from the government.
At the moment, we've got VAT at 20%. I think that needs reducing down to 5% at the most, just like during the COVID pandemic. Other than that, we need a long-term strategy for hospitality. I think there needs to be a plan that sees beyond any leadership elections or general elections, something that will take us a view to 10 years in the future, so we can build a strong hospitality sector. It's not just fish and chips, it's the entire sector.
Next week, a new Prime Minister takes the helm in Westminster with the biggest inbox ever seen in peacetime. Add to that list, saving the humble chippy. Jeff Moody, GB News.
You lose fish and chips, it just won't be Britain anymore. It's so sad. It's such a, British tradition, a chippy, and we've got one where we live, and I have to say the price has been going up for a long time, and my husband and I often share a portion of fish and chips between us because it is so huge and we don't go hungry.
The portions are...
Yeah, I mean, the piece of fish is that size, chop it in half, he'll have the bigger bit, and then we'll share the chips, and that's plenty. But it's still £12 or something.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're dealing with it, but as you say, I think you'll get to a stage where it'll disappear from the high street. I mean, and why there isn't a business cap? That's just ridiculous.
I know, it needs to be changed.
Their costs are solely heating oil in a fryer, and they're not getting any help from that. So that's just bizarre.
Well,
absolutely.
if Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak are listening, it needs to be on your list.
Do you know what gets me? You're talking about your fish and chip shop.
Yeah.
Almost every fish and chip shop has the following words: traditional fish and chips.
What other form is there?
That's what I'm trying to think. What other type of fish and
No, I
chips
know,
are
but they're
there?
just trying to make you, get all sentimental about it.
Yum, yum.
Do you like mushy peas?
Very much so, with vinegar.
That ruins it.
No?
Do you put vinegar on your fish?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And salt. But do you not like mushy peas? That's a class thing again. That's a class. Do you have gravy on your chips or curry? It's a class thing.
I have some mayonnaise on the side. But I'm Belgian.
you?
That's what you do in Belgium. Well, I'm a little bit. I'm a quarter Belgian.
Amongst many things. You're amongst many things. Look, after the break, our big interview is with the General Secretary of the Union, the CWU, about the post office strikes that have been ongoing today. He's also the man coordinating the BT strikes as well. We're going to be talking to him right after your forecast.
The UK is looking mostly dry with some sunny spells, although often cloudy in the east. Let's take a look at the details. Well, the southwest of England will have a largely sunny afternoon, allowing it to feel pleasantly warm for most. However, winds will still be brisk across the moors and along the coast. Southeast England and East Anglia, though, will be rather cloudy at times, with cloud thick enough in places to produce a few showers. Wales, however, will see plenty of sunshine across the country, with just a little fair weather cloud bubbling up from time to time. The West Midlands will also see some good spells of sunshine this afternoon. However, further east, skies will tend to be cloudier, and it will also be feeling cool in the east, thanks to the northeasterly breeze. After a grey morning and cloudy across northern England, this afternoon will be much brighter and sunnier. However, the far north may once again see a fair bit of cloud. Scotland, though, will see a fair bit of cloud, with only the far west and far north seeing some spells of sunshine. Dry for most, though, although the odd spot of rain is possible. It should be dry across Northern Ireland this afternoon, with a mix of cloud and sunny spells, the best of which will be in the west of the country, heading into the evening, and many parts staying dry, with daytime cloud beginning to melt away. And that is how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The summer of strikes continues as thousands of BT and Openreach workers walk out over pay.
Hello there, very good morning to you. 8 o'clock is the time. It's Tuesday, the 3rd of August. You're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. 40,000 BT and Openreach staff are striking today in a dispute over pay. It comes as the union organising the industrial action also prepares to stage the mass walkout of over 100,000 postal workers tomorrow.
In a new tell-all interview, Meghan Markle has claimed that she left the UK with Prince Harry because their existence upset the hierarchy.
And women in England and Wales will have permanent access to at-home abortion pills from today. But ambulance call-outs relating to the pills have increased by more than 2/3 since they became widely available. GB News has this exclusive report.
And you can join in any of the discussions as you have been doing today. We'll be reflecting those shortly. GB Views at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GB News.
And you can subscribe to our GB News channel on YouTube to get all the latest on the big stories everyone's talking about.
Look, here we go with our top story this morning. It's about strikes. The summer of strikes continues. Today, it's 40,000 workers at BT and Openreach. This is a dispute over pay.
Yeah, it's the latest in a wave of strikes that have swept the country, as indeed sweeping the country. More still to come this autumn.
Well, tomorrow we'll see the CWU union stage a strike of Royal Mail staff. That's going to see over 100,000 workers walk out again.
And more mail strikes are then planned for the 8th and 9th of September. And this comes as refuse workers in Scotland have agreed they'll continue to strike next week after rejecting the latest pay offer from the local authority, despite returning to work in Edinburgh today.
Well, joining us now in the studio, union boss Mick Lynch, and he's also promised further strikes, rail strikes for the autumn following the walkouts there in July and August. Mick, just before we come... What?
Dave Ward, not Mick Lynch.
Oh, sorry, yes, that's so totally got that wrong. Sorry, Mick Lynch represents the rail workers. Dave, the point I was going to make, Dave, just before we start talking to you, is that so many people are objecting to unions. They're sort of anti-union, but it's as if they have a cry for unions. Jackie, for instance, is saying, union bosses are very political. Not everyone has access to a union. If unions succeed in getting high wage rises, that makes things even harder for those in lower paid jobs. Bob in Durley says, higher pensioners going to get an increase in wages. We can't go on strike. So what I'm trying to say is, what I'm watching today is coming through here is people saying, oh yeah, it's all right for them. It's all right for them. But people have a choice whether to be in a union or not.
Well, I mean, I don't agree with those comments, and I think we're seeing record numbers of people voting for strike action. I mean, it's important that we discuss the BT strike that's taking place today. And that's because workers, and certainly BT and Openreach workers, are disgusted with the hypocrisy and the greed of the CEO of the company, Philip Jansen, and the BT Group board. This is a company that posted £1.3 billion of profit last year. They posted first quarter profits of 400 million. They chose to give away over 700 million pounds to shareholders. That money doesn't go back into the UK economy, that goes out of the UK and probably builds the infrastructure of other countries as opposed to our country.
What I want people...
And can I also say, though, that the CEO received a 32% increase in his own earnings.
On that subject, we're going to go to a picket line very shortly there in Lincoln for the BT workers. But I want people to think about this as well. You've listened to what Dave have had to say there about dividends and shareholders and all that sort of thing. And ask yourself this, why is it when it comes to the lower paid, and this is what a lot of people, I think you'll agree with me, a lot of people are angry about, when it comes to people on low pay, it's put out that that is unaffordable, right? But yet, when it comes to these massive dividends given out at the top and these massive salaries, apparently the company can afford that. Let's go to a BT strike. Our man in the Midlands, Will Hollis. This is Lincoln, the BT centre there. Reflect what's going on there, Will. Good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning. You can see people, they've just opened the gates for the few people that are coming in to this bit of an area where there's telecommunications workers and all sorts of different industrial workers. Now, this pay dispute has been going on for a number of months. BT awarded a 5% pay award in April. Obviously, as you've heard from Dave Ward, you said that it's not enough because of various different reasons. They say that they'd like something more in line with inflation. 10%, that inflationary figure, is what a lot of these unions are looking for. It's the same thing that Unite are looking for in relation to those Felixstowe strikes that we've been seeing as well. I do think it's really important, because we're hearing from the CWU, that you hear BT's position. BT said that they know that the colleagues are dealing with impacts of high inflation, and although they're disappointed, we respect the decision to strike. And they've also said that they'd like to get move forward. BT, the CWU have said that they'd also like to get back around the table, but we're seeing this dispute, of course. So nobody's moving forward, nobody's going back around the table right now, and you're going to hear lots of cliches relating to these sorts of strikes repeated throughout the next few weeks as these strikes continue.
Thank you, Will. Thank you very much indeed. Getting back to Dave Ward from the CWU here. Will's talking about strikes, plural. We all know what is going on. Are we getting closer, Dave? Is the intention, as a lot of our viewers and listeners may think it is, to move towards a joined-up general strike?
I'll answer that in a second, but first of all, can I just correct what Will said? The company are refusing to negotiate. They have imposed the pay settlement after a pay freeze last year. They imposed a pay settlement, and it's against the background of all of those figures that I talked about, which are factual, which means that a pay rise is affordable. So this is not a question of affordability. This is a question of the choices that people at the top of companies are deliberately making. And what they're actually saying to their own workers who have made those profits is that no matter what the contribution you make to the success of this company, we're going to ensure that you're poorer. And that cannot be acceptable. Now, let me bring...
No. Can you ever change that model? Because I'm just looking here, the FTSE company bosses, these are just official figures released. FTSE company bosses, their pay is on average 109 times higher than their lowest paid workers. Now, basically, is there an aim? Well, if we look to overhaul capitalism and the whole sort of system, is there a sort of range of decency that you can come to, as opposed to 109 times difference between that and that? Is there a range where you can bring that closer together? Will we be moving towards that? Is that your aim?
Well, I do think that we need to change the system as well as deal with the current cost of living crisis. We have to have a look at the long-term impact, which is basically down to a structural imbalance of power and wealth. It permeates the world of work. It's the way that the economy operates in being rigged against working people. And it's at the root of all of the inequalities that you see in society today. So the system has to change. How you do that, there are some simple things that could be introduced. So pay ratios for CEOs, which the workers could vote on. I think workers would understand that pay, executives, the executive pay should be at a reasonable level. But you can't carry on with this philosophy of we've always got to pay top dollar for those at the top of the company. But when it comes to the people who actually make the profits, well, it don't matter. We can go and get somebody else. That is unacceptable in today's society. So that has to change.
I think we've seen after the pandemic, a lot of people have realised they haven't been valued, whatever the area of work that they've been in, and they've decided, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I just wonder, Isabel was making the point earlier in the programme that this is all very well and good and no one's denying anybody having a pay rise or whatever, but overall, the country, there will be a perception, people say the country can't afford it.
Well, it's about the choices you make. And what we want to see is people being treated fairly for the efforts that they put in to make these companies a success in the first place. I think there is a different mood in the UK today. I think people are realising now that it doesn't matter what the crisis is, whether it was the financial crisis in 2008, the pandemic, the current cost of living crisis, the climate emergency. People are realising that they always end up paying the price. And I think people are saying enough's enough. Therefore, when you asked the question earlier about a general strike, I'm sure that alongside coordinated strike action, separate from the current disputes, will be discussed at the TUC General Conference the week after next. Personally, I favour forms of collective action that all workers can participate in, whether they're in a union or not. And for us at the CWU, every worker counts.
Collectively, though, just getting back, you just said there, at the end, we always have to pay the price. I think a lot of people can't understand, how can we pay out to the Royal Mail, to the people? How can we pay out the BT workers? How can we pay out the barristers? How can we pay everybody without paying the price? Where does the money come from?
Well, the money comes from the choices that these companies make.
Right,
and
so it's the company,
so, for
as
example,
opposed to the government.
Well, the government also have a role when it's public sector pay. Clearly they do. But in terms of the companies we're dealing with at the moment, I mean, if they would have given, say, 500 million to the shareholders rather than 700 million, then we could probably resolve this dispute. So that's down to their choices. They knew all of this was going on. They imposed a pay freeze last year on workers. They imposed a settlement. They didn't negotiate. There's been no negotiations here. These people, the level of arrogance knows no bounds. And I think it's time that people understood that you cannot sustain the UK economy on this basis. You cannot create a levelling up agenda in the world of work and right across society if we continue to allow these inequalities to take place.
Yeah. Looking at the Royal Mail situation, and you've an ongoing strike there, in a way you can see what the problem is. The very fact that you have got 100,000 members on strike there, you can see how the owners of the Royal Mail actually look at that and think, we don't want 100,000 people working for us. You can sort of see that jumping out at them, because this is not just about pay. This is about getting rid of the men and the women that do the jobs.
We know there's been an alarming development on Friday when we had the first strike since 2013. Where it's come to light that the company has been involved in secret discussions with a private equity group called Vesa. We're looking to meet the company to understand what that's all about, because they've done that behind the backs of the workers. And I think what you're going to see is a takeover bid from a company that's based in Luxembourg. And I think what's going on in Royal Mail is that they actually don't want the current workforce anymore. I think they want to bring in P&O style contracts going forward. And this is the first start of that.
Yes.
So we know what's going on, and we're not going to accept that.
Presumably they want our Royal Mail to be the same as all the other delivery companies.
They're trying to turn Royal Mail, which has a unique position, has the greatest asset of its own workforce that has built up a level of trust on the doorstep that they should be developing into new products and services. They're trying to turn it into just another parcel courier. And that is, and there's no other way of saying this, that is the race to the bottom.
Okay.
We're not going to accept that.
What would you say to people who would say, but you are just another parcel courier?
Well, we're not. We've got a company that provides the universal service, so we're the only company in the UK that delivers on the same price to every household in the UK, whether you're in a rural location, whether you're in a village, a town, a city. And we could be doing so more. We could be adding social value. We could be building the local economy up by offering tailored services to local businesses.
If you're seen as a service or a business.
Of course it does. And the people that are running Royal Mail don't see it as a service anymore. They see it as a business, and they want to take more and more profit out.
Do you know, I think there's a lot of goodwill towards a postie. And my own brother's a postie. I have to declare my interest in that. What would you say to people who don't really care what happens to the Royal Mail? Will they miss you when you're gone?
I think people do care. I think people care about fairness. I think they care about the service we provide. One of the other things that's got to be out on the table here is this whole debate about modernisation. We've agreed every single bit of automation. We've agreed every single bit of technology that the company wants to put forward. And it's not modernisation. And I think the public do care when workers right across the UK are being ripped off. Because I think the whole country's being ripped off at the moment, and we've got to do something about that.
Inflation is over 10%. what is the offer that has been made to the BT workers today? What is the offer that has been made to Royal Mail workers?
So the BT, there was no offer.
Right.
It was an imposed increase after a pay freeze last year that is worth, on average, depending on the different grades that operate within BT and Openreach, of 4.8%. For the lowest paid workers, who are call centre workers, who are on around about just over £20,000 a year, £1,000 and a £1,500 flat rate increase, the BT actually had to put in place in order for them to maintain their obligation as a living wage employer. So that's what they've signed up to. So they had to do that. So this is not acceptable.
Royal Mail, what have you been? What's the situation?
Royal Mail, similar position in the sense of Royal Mail haven't negotiated. They imposed a 2% pay increase. The company are not telling the truth.
That's quite insulting, isn't it?
Well, the company are not telling the truth. They're trying to spin it that they've offered 5.5%, and it's simply not true. We're happy to debate it with them in the room here with you. We'd rather sit round the table and negotiate a settlement as we would with BT. So, there's an appeal here today to people like Philip Jansen. Get your hands dirty, Philip. Come into the room, negotiate a settlement, treat the workers that have made the profits in the right way, similar to Simon Thompson, the CEO of Royal Mail.
Final point to you, just final question. We're from Congress, Trade Union Congress, what, a week away? 2 weeks?
Yeah, the week after next.
Week after next.
Week after this.
What's the mood going into Congress from the unions?
I think there's a mood that things have got to change. I think there's a mood of solidarity, the likes of which I've never seen in my time in the union movement. And I do believe that we'll be discussing policies, about taking forms of collective action, with obviously the objective of getting the government to take action. This is separate to the disputes that we're currently involved in. But the government needs to step in and do something about the cost of living crisis. They're not doing anything. And people in the country, I think, are beginning to realise that things have to change. And unions will lead that fight for working people in the absence of any action by political parties.
Dave Ward is the General Secretary of the Communication Workers Union. They're leading the charge with the BT workers and Openreach strike today, and the Royal Mail strikes that are ongoing. Thank you very much indeed for your time today. Thank you.
With the time at 8:18, let's bring you up to date on the latest headlines this hour. And a 21-year-old man's died after being stabbed at the Notting Hill Carnival. More than 200 arrests were made at the event last night. Metropolitan Police say officers were called to the Ladbroke Grove area last night. The man died in hospital. Over the bank holiday weekend, approximately 46 of those arrests were for assault and 33 for possessing an offensive weapon.
Boris Johnson has said the deadly floods in Pakistan are heartbreaking. The death toll is well over 1,000. This year's flooding has affected more than 33 million people. 1 in 7 Pakistanis, according to the National Disaster Management Authority. The Queen has written to the President of the country saying she's deeply saddened by the tragic loss of life, and the UK is sending support.
And NASA hope to schedule a second attempt to launch the Artemis 1 moon rocket on Friday. An engine cooling problem forced scientists to postpone yesterday's planned launch. However, engineers are working round the clock to try and resolve the issue in the next 48 to 72 hours.
The Duchess of Sussex has given another interview which has made the headlines, this time to a website called The Cut.
Yes, in the interview she said her very presence in the UK upset the hierarchy of the royal family, and she also claimed that unspecified members of the British media used the N-word to refer to her children.
Can she back any of that up? Let's go to our reporter in LA, Kinsey Schofield, across all of this with her thoughts. She's made the accusation. Has she named names?
She hasn't named names yet, and the Sussexes, they typically don't. They throw out these accusations that are really hard for people like you or I or other journalists to track down. It's been a year since the Oprah Winfrey interview, and we still don't know who the senior member of the royal family is that made comments about Archie's skin color. So it is questionable for them to continue to throw out some of these really heinous allegations without stating specifically who said what. Some of the other stories or, breakout headlines that came out of this interview was Meghan saying that their new reality show, which she basically confirmed for the first time, we expect it to be a Kardashian-like reality show, but Meghan says it is actually a historical documentary. So that's a nice spin. She also compared herself to Nelson Mandela, telling a story about how she was at the Lion King and an actor from the Lion King pulled her aside and said that they rejoiced in the streets when she married Prince Harry. She talks about how Prince Harry has lost Prince Charles as a father, and that came up after she was directly questioned about her relationship with Thomas Markle. And she says she's still trying to forgive the royal family. So Meghan not holding back. She's got her podcast dropping today with Mariah Carey, and we've got another 10 weeks of podcasts after that.
What an eventful trip to the Lion King that was. Wasn't it the same red carpet they did when Prince Harry was overheard trying to tout for business for voiceovers for her, which was then much maligned?
Oh, with the
Disney
person.
Yeah, that was the Lion King, I
correct.
think. Anyway, it just goes to show, doesn't it, that, this private life that they went over the Atlantic to try and seek out was all just a myth, because it's just, as you say, one more interview after another. And the question is, as you say, she hasn't substantiated these claims about the N-word. She's also made this claim that Harry lost his dad in this process. There's been backpedalling on that comment in particular.
Yeah, the backpedaling on the comment, and this is Omid Scobie coming out to clarify, because that's Meghan's mouthpiece, is that she meant she hopes he doesn't lose his father. But Isabel, you can read this article and see how much controlling the narrative is important to her. From some of the quotes, she asks the reporter to describe her physical reaction. She moves the reporter away when asked about her relationship with Tyler Perry. So Meghan, I think Meghan is reacting to the reaction. They're trying to correct a reaction. I think she probably saw this piece before it went live.
Well, you were going to mention, I think, this sort of loss of the relationship, the breakdown of the relationship between Harry and William and Harry and Charles has only happened since Meghan has been on the scene. And all of this is being brought back into our minds on what is the 25th anniversary of the loss of his mother. Now, she actually died as opposed to, just falling out over something that didn't need to happen.
It's incredibly cruel. I don't know whose idea this was, but not to mention, Isabel, that we've seen reports recently that Prince Charles is visiting his mother almost every single morning because she's weak and has these mobility issues. So on top of the fact that this is the anniversary, the 25th anniversary, which is a huge anniversary of the death of Princess Diana, we're also not quite sure how the Queen currently is. So why create more drama? Why create more difficulty for the Queen at this very delicate time?
I'm just going to read a few of the views that have come in.
Yeah.
Linda says, as the saying goes, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Harry is vulnerable and Meghan knows it. Ron says she's destroyed her relationship with all of her own family and is doing a very good job of destroying Harry's.
David says, why do you, the UK media, give her so much news and airtime? There's a good piece in the Mail today, and it describes her interview, Kinsey, as bizarre, often unintentionally hilarious, which I don't think she sees. But her warblings have an undertone of cool menace. And there is this sort of atmosphere that she wants to exact revenge.
Oh, absolutely. I think it was last week I told you I felt solely through the podcast that she was settling scores. But now this long, it took me at least an hour to get through that piece. So it does feel like she is not letting go and moving on. Tell us what your objective is. Are you going to run for president? What are your morals and values? Tell us why you fell in love with Prince Harry. What is motherhood like? There are so many other topics topics she could discuss. And unfortunately, she is just obsessed with tearing down the British royal family. And it truly looks toxic, it looks bitter, and it looks like she's jealous of the Cambridge family.
Well, Dave says Meghan needs to remember one thing. When you embark on revenge, first dig 2 graves, because you could lose. On that note, we'll say goodbye, Kinsey. Thank you very much for staying up so late for us. Or should I say Meghan? See you soon.
God bless. 8:25. We'll take a break there. After that, we've got an exclusive GB News report. This is on at-home abortion pills, because women in England and Wales are going to get permanent access to them from today. All that to come after the weather picture.
The UK is looking mostly dry with some sunny spells, although often cloudy in the east. Let's take a look at the details. Well, the southwest of England will have a largely sunny afternoon, allowing it to feel pleasantly warm for most. However, winds will still be brisk across the moors and along the coast. Southeast England and East Anglia, though, will be rather cloudy at times, with cloud thick enough in places to produce a few showers. Wales, however, will see plenty of sunshine across the country, with just a little fair weather cloud bubbling up from time to time. The West Midlands will also see some good spells of sunshine this afternoon. However, further east, skies will tend to be cloudier, and it will also be feeling cool in the east, thanks to the northeasterly breeze. After a grey morning and cloudy across northern England, this afternoon will be much brighter and sunnier. However, the far north may once again see a fair bit of cloud. Scotland, though, will see a fair bit of cloud, with only the far west and far north seeing some spells of sunshine. Dry for most, though, although the odd spot of rain is possible. It should be dry across Northern Ireland this afternoon, with a mix of cloud and sunny spells, the best of which will be in the west of the country. Heading into the evening, and many parts staying dry, with daytime cloud beginning to melt away. And that is how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 8:29. Lots more still to come this morning. Don't go anywhere. Coming up at 8:45, we'll be speaking to the former Emmerdale actress Gemma Oton. She's got an incredible story to tell. She'll be talking about how she had to have her top teeth removed, all as a result of her battles with eating disorders. She'll be telling us how we can support others with the same condition. And at 9:15, the consultant editor for the Daily Mail, Andrew Pearce, will be here talking us through all the important stories of the day, including his thoughts on Meghan Markle's latest interview. And don't forget, we want to hear from you. Get in touch the usual ways. Now, today, women in England and Wales will have permanent access to at-home abortion pills. But according to GB News, there's been a significant rise in the number of women requiring ambulance services since the medication became available. Alice Porter has more on this, a warning some viewers may find this report disturbing.
Kirsty was in a coercive relationship during the first lockdown. Her boyfriend forced her to order abortion pills over the phone, which she took beyond the 10-week limit.
I made the phone call to the abortion clinic, sort of hoping that they'd sort of question my decision, because I knew deep down that I didn't want to do it. And I didn't have any checks. They didn't even offer me a scan, so I wasn't even sure. I wasn't sure of what the dates anyway of when I first found out I was pregnant.
So you got the abortion pills. Just explain what the process was like when you took the tablets.
Terrible cramps for hours. And then once I lifted my blanket, I was saturated in blood. And it wasn't my blood, it was my baby's blood.
Before the pandemic, all women who wanted an abortion had to be seen in person by a medical professional. They'd be assessed and scanned. If they were in the early stages of pregnancy, they'd be given 2 abortion pills, one to take in the clinic and one to take home. Now, of course, that wasn't practical during lockdown, so the government introduced a scheme where women would be sent abortion pills in the post to take at home. But with no one seeing them in person, has there been enough safeguarding? We sent a Freedom of Information request to all the ambulance trusts in England. Of the 6 which responded, all showed that since abortion pills by post became available in 2020, there's been a rise in the number of women ringing 999 about abortion pills and an increase in ambulance dispatches. London saw the number of call-outs go from 93 in 2019 to 150 in 2020, a 61% increase. In the east of England, the number of call-outs went from 7 in 2019 to 24 in 2020, a rise of 243%. And in the southwest, the number of call-outs went from 33 in 2019 to 74 in 2020, up by 124%. The National Network of Designated Healthcare Professionals has also recorded cases of women taking abortion pills when they're too far along, resulting in a small number of aborted babies being born alive. As a result, one ambulance trust has spent £7,000 on making special mannequins to train their staff when confronted with this difficult situation. But Anne Farady is former head of the British Pregnancy Advisory Service and says for the vast majority of women, at-home abortions are completely safe.
The only downside is that sometimes a doctor or a nurse can perhaps pick up cues by seeing someone in front of them that they wouldn't pick up remotely. But we can't organise medical care on the basis of just the very few. We have to really look at what's best for everyone in these circumstances, and home use pills by post definitely is.
While at-home abortions may not suit some women, today's announcement does allow everyone the opportunity of deciding which option is best for them. Alice Porter, GB News.
So many questions after that. For the latest, let's go to Alice with the latest.
Hi there. Well, yes, the government have responded. The Minister for Public Health, Maggie Throup, said the well-being and safety of women requiring access to abortion services is paramount. And with these measures, women will have more choice in how and where they access abortion services. And I think the word choice there is really, really key, because in the first year of the pandemic, women did not have the same level of choice as they would have now because they were in lockdown. The vast majority of them would have had to have at-home abortion pills. That's no longer the case, and today's announcement does give women the choice of deciding what option is best for them. And I think it's important to stress for women who live in, say, rural areas or areas where there is a lack of public transport, many of them will be delighted that they'll have better access to early abortions without the need to be going into clinic, perhaps needlessly, if that's something that they know that is a decision that they want to do. But I think also it's important to stress that the numbers that we've discovered with GB News need to be seen in the context of about 150,000 women have had at-home abortions that we've seen in March of this year. That was what the Commons were told. But this investigation certainly raises some quite fundamental questions about why women are ringing 999 more and why there was also an increase in ambulance dispatches. I think there are a number of concerns about whether there's been enough safeguarding for vulnerable women and for children as well, because it's important to stress that children have also been able to access at-home abortions without being seen in person by a medical professional. But we are today expecting an update from the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health in regards to safeguarding for under 18s.
OK, Alice, thanks very much indeed.
Well, with the time at 25 to 9, we'll go to a break, and then when we come back, we've got the newspapers, the company of Emma Whelan and Martin Dobney. Hope to see you then.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
And we continue our look through the newspapers this morning in the company of Emma Whelan, the journalist, and Martin Dobney, the journalist as well. Very good to see both of you. And Martin, it's you we're going to begin with. We were trying to avoid it, but it's unavoidable. The leadership battle. We'll know this time next week who is the new leader, the new Prime Minister of the country and leader of the Conservatives. You've taken this front page of the Express. What are they saying?
Well, I think barring a comet striking the Earth, it's going to be Liz Truss who's the next Prime Minister, and almost certainly inheriting the worst fiscal situation since post-war Winston Churchill. And there's been lots of talk about what to do. And she's talked about universal tax cuts, £76 billion worth of cuts on green levies, income tax, corporation tax and VAT, all on the table. And a lot of people are saying we can't afford to do this. And I'm going to argue why we can't afford to not do this. We spent £410 billion on the pandemic in total, including £70 billion on the furlough, £6 billion on vaccines, £22 billion on track and trace, £2.3 billion on the Ukraine, and we spend £5 million every day on asylum seeker hotels. Are we really the sort of country that should say we shouldn't spend £76 billion to save people from the cold dying alone at home this winter.
But what, Martin, if we haven't got it after all that other expenditure?
So are we saying that it's worthwhile of our money to imprison the population for 2 years, to pay people not to work for 2 years, but not to pay the most infirm and elderly and impoverished to stay warm and stay alive?
That is what they're saying.
Well, we can't do that. What is our priority as a nation? To take care of our most vulnerable, or to just let them die?
Well, to be fair, Rishi Sunak has said that he would extend his targeted help to 16 million of those on benefits and pensioners as well if he was to be elected. But as you say, it's unlikely that he is going to be our next Prime Minister. But in terms of actual economists, people who know more than any of us about fiscal matters have come out and said that Liz Truss's plans to cut, as you say, I think it was £76 billion through tax, is financially illiterate, that actually it will stoke inflation. And even Professor Patrick Minford, who's pretty much the only economist that I'm aware of who agrees with tax cutting to try and boost growth, has said that this will stoke inflation. His own idea.
Who would have said that it was financially literate to pay £70 billion for people not to work? That was a once in a generation, once in a lifetime opportunity and a demand. We're at that position again, I think.
Yeah.
If we really believe that we should just let people die of cold as opposed to spending money to not work, I think we've lost our minds and we've lost our way as a society.
Ella, do you worry about the sort of financial plans that are being outlined left, right and centre when we're sort of facing, I think, probably hardship that most of us aren't even prepared for this winter?
Well, I think Martin's right that the kind of belt-tightening argument just doesn't cut it anymore. I mean, it didn't cut it years ago when it was being made. And people forget that we have had some form of kind of austerity for a very long time now. There's been very little growth. But I think, you know, you'd have more confidence in a government, or even in Liz Truss, who I think most people have very little confidence in, or Rishi Sunak, if there was a broader economic vision. So, you know, doing things like mass borrowing and mass spending, people would feel less nervous about it if there was the suggestion that there was a serious attempt to increase production, increase wealth production, growth, big things in relation to the economy. If there are big plans in the table, then you'd think, OK, we can get over this period because there's something coming in the future. The problem is whether they're, both of them are being silent until, with any kind of plans until they actually become Prime Minister in the next week or so. But there seems to be no big vision for the economy more broadly past this kind of, I have to say that, even though tax is important, this really sort of interminable and sort of infuriating squabbling about tax between Sunak and Truss with no bigger issues like how to, actually get more wealth swirling around in the economy.
Okay. Well, that brings us to page 2 of the Times and their take on the leadership battle. Rishi Sunak accusing Liz Truss of dodging scrutiny.
Yes, so, Liz Truss was meant to be being interviewed in a kind of in-depth style with the BBC's Nick Robinson this evening at 7 o'clock. And there was a kind of, people were shocked that she said she was going to do it because she had pulled out or refused to be interviewed by Andrew Neil previously. And she's now said to Nick and his team, I don't have the time for it, so I'm not going to do it.
Didn't Boris Johnson do that when it was...
He did do that.
So it's such a foregone conclusion. She has more to lose than to gain from that. I mean,
yes, he did do that. He refused to do the Neil interview. I think most people probably are terrified by those big political interviews that are, geared around trying to pick apart someone's position. As a journalist, as all of us who are involved in the news business know how important it is to get behind the kind of slogans and the headlining that goes on and try and find out the kind of the meat of what a candidate believes in. The problem with this is that I think so much of the Tory this particular leadership contest has looked like a kind of a very insular, very self-indulgent kind of pursuit of careers on both Sunak and Truss's behalf. I think there's very few people in the country, Conservative voters or otherwise, who think that this is two people who are genuinely impassioned about the future of the country, sorry. It seems very much like the future of the company for both of them. And this kind of behaviour, though, yes, if I was her spad or her aide, maybe I'd be saying just keep quiet until you get the job. I think it comes across very badly. And that's not just, like I said, as us as journalists, you always want to have someone to be able to put someone on the spot. But I think it just is a kind of, it displays the self-indulgence of this particular Tory leadership contest, it leaves a bad taste in the mouth.
I think it's more than that. I think this is the BBC reaping what they sow. You know, since 2016, it's been a continual gotcha, anti-Brexit, anti-conservative sentiment. There's nothing in this for Truss other than getting caught out. They're a hostile force, and I think the BBC, no, suck it up. I really do.
What about pubs under pressure, Martin? Daily Mail talking about this, page 12. It's been really worrying, the reports over the weekend. 75% of pubs won't make it through the winter. We're talking about fish and chip shops. I mean, these are British institutions, really. Much love, but perhaps not going to survive.
And again, it's funny how Emma McClarkin, a pal of mine, chief executive of the British Beer and Pub Association, is saying that the increase in fuel for pubs will have a bigger effect on the industry than the pandemic. And if you recall, that was carnage for hospitality. There was a bill that came to light on social media of a pub in Bebington, in Merseyside, £62,000 per annum to heat that pub, the Rose and Crown. Adam Brooks, contributor to GB News, said that the Owl, his pub, will cost £250,000 a year to heat. So quite simply, we're looking at margins disappearing. Now, it's already a very tough industry, hospitality. And so what are we going to be left with after all this? I know it's a bit of a bleak news morning, but you're dead right. Fish and chips, pubs, part of the fabric of what holds us together, are going to be, if we're not careful, swept away by this energy.
You know, we can sit and do all this sentimentality. Oh, it's part of the fabric of British life, and we could use our chippies. We could lose our. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you were talking about we're in this situation because of a war in Ukraine. This is a war. Now, when are we going to get really serious about energy security and procuring energy? It doesn't matter if you're objecting about fracking, it's going to happen. That's what we're going to do. When is somebody going to grow a pair and actually say, right, we need energy or you're all going to die or you're all going to go out of business, and we've got to procure this? Yeah, totally. I agree. And we've been talking about this for many months. Energy sovereignty, self-sufficiency has to be a matter now of national security, has to be the primary objective, because what's going to be left on the landscape if we don't do that? You know, individuals facing poverty, industry is wiped out altogether. You're absolutely right. It's time to sweep this net zero nonsense to one side and get down to the job of being energy self-sufficient. Guys, what do you think about this? You're listening. Join in the discussion on this one. GBviews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GB News as well. Give us your views. How serious is this whole energy situation? How scared are you by the lack of availability of energy, the costs that are going to put businesses out of being able to be run, and what's happening to you personally at home about winter and everything that goes with it? And hey, look, we might try to get some of you on the air some point this week if we get some good stories from you. So do get in touch. You know the usual ways. For now, Ella and Martin, both, thank you very much indeed for coming in. 13 minutes now before 9 o'clock. Let's bring you up to date with what is happening news-wise on this Tuesday morning. More than 30 arrests have been made in Liverpool over the last 24 hours as part of a crackdown on organised crime following the fatal shooting of 9-year-old Olivia Pratt-Corbell. Operation Miller saw Merseyside police make 32 arrests and stop and search a further 66 people as the force promised to leave no stone unturned to protect the public. The Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi is travelling to the USA this week to meet with government officials and bankers in an attempt to find joint solutions to the cost of living crisis. The Treasury says he will push for cooperation on energy security and financial services. The Prime Minister has said the deadly floods in Pakistan are heartbreaking as the death toll passes 1,060. The Queen's written to Pakistan's president saying she's deeply saddened by the tragic loss of life, and the UK is sending support. Well, the actress Gemma Oten, who's sitting in a very squeaky chair this morning, you can hear her, has made her name as Emmerdale's Rachel Breckle. But before that, Gemma spent 13 years battling a serious eating disorder. Yeah, we have spoken to Gemma on the programme before. You might remember some of the details. She was hospitalised at the age of 11 and, as an adult, has even suffered with kidney distress. Well, over the summer, Gemma revealed bulimia and anorexia had caused serious damage to her teeth, forcing her to have them removed. But I'm pleased to say she's here in the studio to tell us all about it. And looking fit and well, and we really hope you are.
Yes, I'm doing amazing. Thank you so much.
But you come through a lot, and there's so many conditions, and there's so much we can talk to you about. But I think the thing about the bulimia, is that of all the consequences of bulimia, I don't think people look and say, I could lose my teeth over that.
No, and I think this is why I'm wanting to talk about it today, because it's one of the parts of the eating disorder that people don't discuss, because your teeth are integral to your life, you know, and you eat, you breathe, you kiss, it's intimacy, it's everything. And to think that that could go, it's not something that you want to even contemplate, because an eating disorder is very manipulative, it's very secretive, it makes you feel very ashamed. And I think this side of it, because of bulimia, people don't talk about it enough because they feel disgusting. I know I felt disgusting, and I was made to feel disgusting by my dentist when I was younger. I remember going to the dentist when the acid was eroding my teeth.
So when you throw up constantly, you've got this acid and this bile, which is damaging your teeth. And I mean, your teeth look absolutely fantastic now, but they have been rebuilt.
Yes.
Yeah, you've got that. Now, we've got a number of pictures here, if you don't mind just showing them, Gemma, where we show your mouth,
the reveal.
This is the reveal. This is you finding out your new teeth here and what they look like. You look pretty happy. Yeah? And, I mean, emotionally, what does that do for you? I mean, do you know, your condition, is it under control? Does the new teeth mean a new beginning?
Yeah, it does. I felt so much less of a person for so many years, and I think this is what a lot of people with eating disorders feel like. They feel like they haven't got a voice, and you lose your identity because the eating disorder takes that away. It's a mental health illness, but I do feel like now, with the help of Dr. Harry Davis, who has been so kind and compassionate, I've actually got a chance of moving forward with my life.
And listen, I never remember you having bad...
Sorry.
I don't know, no, sorry at all. But I think we've got a number of pictures here, which we can show that your teeth actually being built up. This is... So we're seeing you here quite young.
Yeah.
And how your teeth were actually rebuilt. You know, but as I say, it's not a consequence, but it was having a big effect on you to add to the mental issues that you had.
There's a recovery after recovery for a lot of people. I mean, I recovered 14 years ago, but the ongoing journey and the ramifications on my physical health have been vast. So me losing my teeth at the... Thank you, darling. Me losing my teeth at the age of 38, thinking that I'd recovered 15 years ago, has been a massive shock to the system. But a lot of people, since I've spoken out about it, are going through this. And there's a few reasons that I came today is because early intervention is so key. The sooner we get help, the sooner somebody can come back from the brink of losing their life. And I don't just mean physically losing their life, but mentally losing their life for all of these years.
It's an incredibly serious illness and just so brave, and obviously it's really emotional to talk about as well. I want to bring in, because you've talked about the expert help that has helped you to get better, so I want to bring in an expert now, Dr. Amara Nassim. She is a senior counselling psychologist in London, specialising in these sorts of mental health illnesses. Look, to hear Gemma there describing her dentist shaming her, making her feel dirty and disgusting at a very tender adolescent age when she was clearly battling, perhaps not clearly, but was battling an eating disorder. You'd think someone in the health profession, a dentist, would know better than that. I mean, is there re-education required right across the board, not just from us, Joe Blogs, but from people like dentists as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really terrible to hear that's been her experience and that's what's happened, and unfortunately might happen to other people. Dentists nowadays, I think, do have a lot of training, or I certainly know of dentists that are much more aware of this now, and medical professionals across the board could do with ongoing training and being updated around how to look for signs of eating disorders. A dentist is in a prime position to offer support from the get-go there. They might be the first person to see in that person's mouth and be able to tell signs of the enamel wasting away, that this person might be engaging in certain behaviours and purging. So that's a really tender opportunity right there, missed from that dentist, to offer support and guidance for Gemma. And I agree, there should be much more training and availability for that being rolled out for all healthcare professionals.
Yeah, and what about those people who would have been in Gemma's life? And many of us know people in our lives who are battling eating disorders. What can we do to try and help? Because I think of I've got a dear friend, she's a mummy friend of mine, she's got kids same age as mine, but she quite clearly has acute anorexia. Nobody knows within our friendship group how to help her, and we all want to help her. Is it a bit sort of like with alcoholism, that it has to come very much from the person themselves, or are there things that you can do to try and help?
Yeah, it's a really good question. There absolutely is things that you can do to help. I think the first thing is ask the person as well who is suffering and struggling. First of all, making sure that they're getting professional support from someone who's qualified in the medical field. And then ask them, actually, what kind of support do you need from me? What can I do that is helpful for you? There's also the possibility, if they're getting treatment, to go in for joint sessions with them and asking them if that's something that would be helpful for them. There's lots of resources as well that I can signpost people to as well if they get in contact, that no one's expected to know about an eating disorder in order to offer support. But you do know how to be a friend and offer support, and just with kindness show concern, and that you're someone that's there to support the person through their struggles. And if there's anything specific you can do to help them with the recovery, ask them, just engage with them. There's things like meal support that people can help with if that's comfortable for that person as well.
Doctor, thank you very much indeed. That's Dr. Amara Nassim there, who's a senior counselling psychologist in Harley Street. Also, from your point of view, Gemma, you help as well. Your mum runs this charity, Seed. Tell us about that and what you do there.
My mum and dad set up Seed 22 years ago because I wasn't receiving the help that I needed, and they wanted to support not just people who were struggling, but also loved ones and carers. So we run email buddy schemes, text buddy schemes, workshops, support groups. We are there as somebody who is there to listen and bridge the gap where people fall off many times. But one of the things that we do, just going back to what she was saying, is we treat the person and not the eating disorder. And that's what's so important. And that's why I'm speaking to you again. I know I keep saying why I'm doing this and sharing my story. It's because I want to take away the stigma for so many. There's 1.6 million in the people in the UK alone who are struggling with an eating disorder. Yeah. And it's probably more than that now, actually. And it's OK to talk about it. It's OK to normalise this conversation, because ultimately we at Seed want people to thrive and not just survive. So we're here.
Yeah. Do you know what it was that triggered it all for you? Do you see something as an event that, led you down this path?
Yeah, I think so, Isabel. I think for me, looking back, I was bullied. I went through puberty around the age of 10, and I went from, being a tomboy out with the lads, having no cares, to sort of growing into a young woman, and the green-eyed monster comes along. I was a high achiever. There was a lot of pressure on me that I put on myself. And I think I felt like I couldn't control what people were saying or doing, but I could control some element of me. And over the years, I felt like the smaller I was, the safer I was. And that stayed with me for many, many years, because I didn't get that help psychologically as a mental health illness that I needed. And 13 years of nearly dying 4 times, not knowing if I can now have kids, and losing my teeth. I don't want anybody to go through what we did.
Where are you at now? How would you describe yourself and your position at the moment?
I think I am so aware of myself. The more I talk about it, the braver I become. I think there's a recovery after recovery, definitely. And I don't mean that in terms of me and the way I eat and the way I view myself. I think it's just a daily evolving challenge to know what life is like. Thinking that I lost 13 years, I'm still rebuilding who I am as a 38-year-old woman. There's a lot of patterns and things that I still have to challenge. Don't get me wrong, Eamonn, I lost weight during lockdown through anxiety, and unbeknownst to me, this kidney failure. And it was very, very quick where my mind went, you've got to put weight on, but maybe you shouldn't. And I remember reaching out to my best friend, Joff, and my therapist, because that's important. And Joff was like, it's OK. You're talking to me, so we're going to be all right. And I love my friendship circle for that, because, again, I can talk to them.
Well, listen, you stay OK.
I will.
Lovely talking to you. Come and see us any time.
Thank you.
Seed, the charity, their details on the website are seed.charity. And also Beat Eating Disorders, their contact details on the website is beateatingdisorders.org.uk. You were listening to Gemma Oaten.
Do stay with us. In the next half an hour, we'll be speaking to the consultant editor of the Daily Mail, Andrew Pearson.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The summer of strikes continues as thousands of BT and Openreach workers walk out over pay.
Hello there, very good morning to you wherever you're watching from or listening. It's just after 9 o'clock. It's Tuesday the 30th of August, and this is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. 40,000 BT and Openreach staff are striking today in a dispute over pay. It comes as the union organising the industrial action also prepares to stage the mass walkout of over 100,000 postal workers tomorrow.
In a new tell-all interview, Meghan Markle has claimed that she left the UK with Prince Harry because their existence upset the dynamic of the hierarchy.
And save our chippies. We're in Swanage in Dorset as we discover why the price of a humble chippy tea has rocketed during the cost of living crisis.
Don't just have chippies for your tea, you know.
Lunch? Breakfast?
You could do lunch. Don't think I've
We
gone
haven't
to a
done that
breakfast
yet,
bit,
have
but,
we?
Well, we could. Listen, thanks for getting involved today. You know how to do it. gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GB News as well. Also, we've got a fantastic app where you can listen and you can watch us and you can subscribe to the GB News channel on YouTube as well.
Do you know, I was watching the app from abroad.
Yes.
I watch it overseas. I was on holidays last week in
Yeah.
France, and there I was watching you.
There you are.
Yeah.
You couldn't beat it with a big stick.
So our top story this morning, Britain's summer of strikes continues. 40,000 workers at BT and Openreach are today leaving their posts in a dispute over pay.
OK, all of this is the latest in a wave of industrial action sweeping the country. More to come as we get into autumn.
Here's the General Secretary of the Communications Workers Union, Dave Ward. He told us why his members are striking.
They have imposed the pay settlement after a pay freeze last year. They imposed a pay settlement, and it's against the background of all of those figures that I talked about, which are factual, which means that a pay rise is affordable. So this is not a question of affordability. This is a question of the choices that people at the top of companies are deliberately making. And what they're actually saying to their own workers who have made those profits is that no matter what the contribution you make to the success of this company, we're going to ensure that you're poorer. And that cannot be acceptable. Now, let me bring...
No. Can you ever change that model? Because I'm just looking here, the FTSE company bosses, these are just official figures released. FTSE company bosses, their pay is on average 109 times higher than their lowest paid workers. Now, basically, is there an aim? Well, if we look to overhaul capitalism and the whole sort of system, is there a sort of range of decency that you can come to as opposed to 109 times difference between that and that? Is there a range where you can bring that closer together? Will we be moving towards that? Is that your aim?
Well, I do think that we need to change the system as well as deal with the current cost of living crisis. We have to have a look at the long-term impact, which is basically down to a structural imbalance of power and wealth. It permeates the world of work. It's the way that the economy operates in being rigged against working people. And it's at the root of all of the inequalities that you see in society today. So the system has to change. How you do that, there are some simple things that could be introduced. So pay ratios for CEOs, which the workers could vote on. I think workers would understand that pay, executives, the executive pay should be at a reasonable level. But you can't carry on with this philosophy of we've always got to pay top dollar for those at the top of the company. But when it comes to the people who actually make the profits, well, it don't matter. We can go and get somebody else. That is unacceptable in today's society. So that has to change.
I think we've seen after the pandemic, a lot of people have realised they haven't been valued, whatever the area of work that they've been in, and they've decided, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I just wonder, Isabel was making the point earlier in the programme that this is all very well and good and no one's denying anybody having a pay rise or whatever, but overall, the country, there will be a perception, people say the country can't afford it.
Well, it's about the choices you make. And what we want to see is people being treated fairly for the efforts that they put in to make these companies a success in the first place. I think there is a different mood in the UK today. I think people are realising now that it doesn't matter what the crisis is, whether it was the financial crisis in 2008, the pandemic, the current cost of living crisis, the climate emergency, people are realising that they always end up paying the price. And I think people are saying enough's enough. Therefore, when you asked the question earlier about a general strike, I'm sure that alongside coordinated strike action, separate from the current disputes, will be discussed at the TUC General Conference the week after next. Personally, I favour forms of collective action that all workers can participate in, whether they're in a union or not. And for us at the CWU, every worker counts.
Dave Ward speaking a little bit earlier. Now, if you treated yourself to some fish and chips over the weekend, you might have noticed a significant price hike. The soaring price of the fish itself, the sunflower oil and energy has left many local chip shops struggling for survival. The National Federation of Fish Fryers has even warned that our iconic fish and chips could soon be a thing of the past. Well, our South West of England reporter Jeff Moody has this.
A British bank holiday weekend. Fish and chips, salt and vinegar, mushy peas, curry sauce. Our chippy teas are as British as Yorkshire pudding.
It's always been a thing. When you go to the seaside, you have your rock, you have your fish and chips, you can hear the seagulls.
Yeah, but it was always better in newspaper. Years ago, when I was growing up, it was a poor man's meal. Now, just bought 2 lots of fish and chips, 23 quid.
But why is our erstwhile national dish now so expensive?
The fish prices have gone up extortionately. The oil prices have gone up extortionately, and everything across the whole spectrum that we sell have gone up extortionately. So we're finding it a struggle to keep our prices reasonable and competitive.
I mean, it's all right for me to go in there and get one portion for myself, but that was £11 just for one person.
That's a lot of money, isn't it?
So can you imagine, you've got a group of 5 or 6, that's probably more expensive than going to a restaurant.
The National Federation of Fish Fryers believes the industry could be on the verge of extinction They've been pressing for help from the government.
At the moment, we've got VAT at 20%. I think that needs reducing down to 5% at the most, just like during the COVID pandemic. Other than that, we need a long-term strategy for hospitality. I think there needs to be a plan that sees beyond any leadership elections or general elections, something that will take us a view to 10 years in the future, so we can build a strong hospitality sector. It's not just fish and chips, it's the entire sector.
Next week, a new Prime Minister takes the helm in Westminster with the biggest inbox ever seen in peacetime. Add to that list, saving the humble chippy. Jeff Moody, GB News.
What's the world coming to? Coming up, we'll be going through all the top stories. Andrew Pearce will be joining us. He'll be talking about what he makes of Meghan Markle's latest interview. First, though, here's your forecast. The UK is looking mostly dry with some sunny spells, although often cloudy in the east. Let's take a look at the details. Well, the southwest of England will have a largely sunny afternoon, allowing it to feel pleasantly warm for most. However, winds will still be brisk across the moors and along the coast. Southeast England and East Anglia, though, will be rather cloudy at times, with cloud thick enough in places to produce a few showers. Wales, however, will see plenty of sunshine across the country, with just a little fair weather cloud bubbling up from time to time. The West Midlands will also see some good spells of sunshine this afternoon. However, further east, skies will tend to be cloudier, and it will also be feeling cool in the east, thanks to the northeasterly breeze. After a grey morning and cloudy across northern England, this afternoon will be much brighter and sunnier. However, the far north may once again see a fair bit of cloud. Scotland, though, will see a fair bit of cloud, with only the far west and far north seeing some spells of sunshine. Dry for most, though, although the odd spot of rain is possible. It should be dry across Northern Ireland this afternoon, with a mix of cloud and sunny spells, the best of which will be in the west of the country. Heading into the evening, and many parts staying dry, with daytime cloud beginning to melt away. And that is how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Ready, set, summer with Jet2 Holidays. Now's the time to get away, so come on. Discover amazing sunny destinations with 4- and 5-star hotels and 22 kilograms of baggage included. Don't miss out. Book now. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. After NATO protected.
The Leather Sofa Company. Beautiful leather sofas made by designer Italian brands. Available in a wide range of colours and styles, with over 300 suites in stock for immediate delivery, and up to £700 double part exchange on your old suite. Visit our showroom in Plasmile Swansea or visit www.leathersofacompanyuk.com to find out more. The Leather Sofa Company. Bellissima.
Looking for competitively priced gold and silver? Look no further than the Gold Bullion Company. We stock gold and silver bullion bars and coins from leading mints in the UK and around the world, with pricing based on the live market rate. Our gold coins and bars are all VAT free, with a choice of fully insured storage or free fully insured UK delivery, and over 9,000 5-star reviews. You know that you're in safe hands. Visit thegoldbullion.co.uk to find out more.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
"13 minutes past 9. A very good morning to you if you're watching or wherever you're listening from. Nice to have you on board.
Yeah, we are talking now to Andrew Pearce. He's joining us this morning, consultant editor, of course, of the Daily Mail. Only really one story in town in terms of, stuff to talk about. It has got to be Meghan and her latest truth bombs, as she likes to call them.
Your paper says bizarre, often intentionally hilarious, but her warblings have an undertone of cool menace.
Yeah, look, she just can't help herself, can she? Where to start with this? The thing I think most shocking, she says that Harry told her, husband tells wife, he thinks he's lost his father too, the way she's lost hers. If he did tell her that, why is she revealing that to a New York magazine? Isn't that incredibly private? This is a woman who says her privacy is constantly invaded by my newspaper, other newspapers, revealing something that Harry had told her in confidence, which they then have to put a statement out, getting it clarified a few hours later by that chap who wrote the book all about them, which again revealed lots about their private life, saying, actually, that's not quite what she meant. Yes, it is, because I've read it 3 times.
But what did she mean?
Well, yeah, exactly, what did she mean? And, of course, she doesn't talk to her father either. There's a pattern of behaviour here, isn't there? Harry has been torn away from his family, no mention of William and Kate. This extraordinary claim that she was told when she went to some West End show that South Africa regarded her entry into the British royal family is the same significance as the freeing of Nelson Mandela from prison. Oh, my God, how can she believe any of that?
The Messiah complex, you could
has.
say. Is this the same West End show we were trying to remember, The Lion King, when her husband was touting for business?
He was.
On the red carpet.
That's exactly
and
what he was doing.
overheard saying, what an eventful night that was for her.
Yeah, I know. It is extraordinary. You read that and there's absolutely no prospect now of any rapprochement with the royal family.
Do you think that actually this could trigger further action against them from the royal family? Because, you know, this is the anniversary of Princess Diana's death this week.
You'd have thought Harry might have thought about that.
For Harry and indeed for William. And here she is talking about him losing his father. Well, actually, these guys lost their mother.
They did.
And he's lost his father because of her.
In the most tragic
I think what you may find is everyone will wait for the Queen to pass and then the game may change. People may not be as tolerant and forgiving of her, and there may be some response to the warblings of this woman who is a professional victim.
She is, and there's so many inaccuracies in there. She suggests that the British press, somebody in the British press, referred to her children with the N-word.
Well, she says more than one person.
More than one person.
Name them if that is the case.
Who are they?
Terrible accusation.
It is.
And I mean, listen, I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, people that we know in our business, there may be some vile characters, whatever. How surprising would it be to you, because I know it would be hugely surprising to me, if you were rubbing shoulders with someone who would use that word?
I'd be astonished.
Yes,
I haven't heard that word for
Neither have I.
decades. And you certainly wouldn't expect any British journalist, male or female, broadcast journalist or print journalist, to say it. She also said, and wasn't challenged by the interviewer, I couldn't possibly have stayed in Britain. Taking my children to school every day, I'd run the gauntlet of 40 photographers. Not true. Kate Middleton takes her children to school every day. You don't see any photographs of it. There's an agreed photo call on the first day at school. We see all that with Charles back in the 50s and all of them. And then the media stay away. They do, and she must know that.
She's just watching The Crown too much, isn't she?
Well, she just wants sympathy. She wants the whole time it to be about her and sympathy. And she also, I thought it was really bizarre, they bought this house worth £11 million. They didn't even go inside it. She was just wandering around the garden and liked the garden, thought, oh, we'll buy that. Where's all this money coming from? Netflix, which is why she's got to keep slagging off the royal family to make her currency.
She's got to keep controversial.
She does.
But it just really jars, doesn't it, when we spend all our morning talking about the cost of living crisis. We're seeing, you know, we've got pictures of people drowning in the floods in Pakistan.
Terrible.
There's so much abject misery around the world. And yet there she is in her $11 million palace in Montecito, feeling sorry for herself.
I know. Having lived in a house of a very rich American man, first of all, they never even met him. And yet she also says, just finally, she says she should have been allowed to make money and serve in the royal family, just like other members of the royal family can.
But only if she could rule New Zealand or Canada or something.
Because no member of the royal family is allowed to operate commercially. They just don't. If she's talking about Zara Phillips and Peter Phillips, well, yeah, and she never had any titles from the beginning, and she's not on the civil list, and they don't work for the royal family. They just happen to be.
But she is a control freak. During this interview, she says to the interviewer, please record, if I don't make a sentence, if I don't complete a sentence, whatever, as you've just done, Andrew coughed, a guttural sound there. You have to describe how she's gasping, moaning, or whatever other bodily noises that she she happens to exert or make during that time.
All the years I've been doing interviews, I've never been asked to do that.
No, I know.
With my tape recorder, make sure you get that in the interview and then decipher it and interpret it. I've obviously not been doing my job right, Eamonn.
But it's these unsubstantiated claims. She did it in Oprah last year, went allegation against a member of the royal family claiming racism. She's done it again against the British media. We had an email in from one of our viewers this morning saying the only N-word associated with the Sussexes by the British people is narcissist.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very, very.
Let's talk about other things.
Yeah.
Tea. Do you like a cup of tea? Do you like a cup of tea?
Well, I do.
Yeah.
And I'm very thrilled by this study, 500,000 older people saying if you drink lots of tea, it's going to make you less susceptible to a heart attack.
Do you drink lots of tea?
I do.
How many?
Oh, gosh, 5 or 6 cups a
do
day.
you?
Yeah, but a couple of them will be decaffeinated.
Okay.
But I'm quite sure there was a study last week, or was it the week before, saying if you drink too much tea, you can get throat cancer. These wretched scientists, you know, one week it's
Andrew,
good for you, the next
something.
week it isn't.
I have an occasional cup of tea. I enjoy a cup of tea when I have it. I have to have something to eat with it when I have tea.
Funny.
That's just the thing. But I'll tell you what I can't have. People who insist on burning your esophagus with tea.
Yeah.
That I don't. Is it just me? What is the point of making tea so warm that it
so agree.
burns the inside of your mouth and your
Cool
tongue?
it off with a bit of milk.
Yeah. But equally, I can't bear tea which is cold either.
Exactly.
You like it on the hot
There's a
side.
happy medium.
Yeah.
You know, I'm with you. I'm in the middle. But I mean, being an Irishman, I'm surprised you don't drink gallons of tea.
He doesn't drink either. He's not a true Irishman.
I substitute it with soft drinks. I get my caffeine in
but you're
other
a
ways.
teetotaler as well, aren't you?
Well, yeah, I don't drink alcohol, yeah, but I do
Not very
drink far
Irish.
too many
I know,
soft drinks.
it's not very Irish.
My Irish ancestry, I think, is the very reason I drink so much vodka.
Yes.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah.
OK, should we talk about North Sea Oil or Liz Truss and
It's
what she's up to or
Big
not up
story
to?
on the front page of the Times. A rush to drill more North Sea oil. There's apparently 15 billion barrels of oil in the North Sea. And why has it been neglected? Because of this great rush for green. Wind power, all the rest of it, solar power. And now, of course, we're in this terrible energy crisis. The government are now dishing out licences galore. But it's going to take time to get the oil barrels flowing again. But
that's not why they're doing it, mate.
We should try and become self-sufficient.
Yes, but I don't think that's what this is about. I think it should be about that. I think this is about the licences for the drilling, cash for the Treasury, so the taxation on the barrels that are produced. I think this is about keeping the Treasury replenished as opposed to the energy security business.
Because they issue the licence now, you get the money straight away. But it'll take a long time to get the oil out of the ground.
On stream. And also, when it does come out of the ground, surely the likes of BP and Shell are going to sell it on the international market rather than give it to us for domestic use.
So we're nationalise it.
Well, apparently lots of Tories want that now.
Lots of Scottish people want that as well.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure because look, the problem I've got with Keir Starmer's plan about freezing energy prices now. Very wealthy people then get the benefit of that, I think the help should be targeted at people who really need it. That's not me. It should be targeted at pensioners, people on benefits, people on middle incomes, people earning 45,000 if they've got 4 kids. They're going to struggle to pay the bills. That's where the help should go.
Do you think Liz Truss is right for dodging the Nick, what's his name, Robinson interview tonight?
Oh, why not? For God's sake, this thing's gone on so long. We're all bored stiff with it. She's bored stiff with it. Everybody's fed up with it. What is she going to say? He's going to show off and try and prove how clever he is. She just can't be bothered. I'd frankly rather she spends the 3 hours she'd have to prepare for that, trying to sort out what she's going to do on day one as Prime Minister.
Yeah, I don't like to say that because I, obviously, as a journalist, I always want to try and pin them down, but I have to agree.
Well,
I do feel like there's a huge crisis going on. There's too much navel gazing.
7 weeks this has been going on.
Yeah, they should be making policy. I think they should have made some sort of joint policy with Johnson, a sort of tri-party policy that they agreed on rough broad strokes that should have been implemented by now, and then you fine-tune it whenever who becomes Prime Minister. Doctors' surgeries. Now, we've talked about restaurants closing on the high street, fish and chip shops closing, but GP surgeries closing. This is another national scandal.
It really is. 500 surgeries have closed in a matter of years. No wonder there's such pressure on the NHS. No wonder you can't get to see a doctor. No wonder so many people go to accident and emergency. GPs get all this expensive training. A lot of them are retiring early or they're working part-time. It is a scandal. The government says they're going to train more GPs. That takes 7 or 8 years. And it's going to be a real problem because people want to see the doctor. They don't always want to be able to do it on the phone or speak to 111 or have a Zoom appointment. But surgeries are literally vanishing.
When you apply a business model to something, you take away the value. So you say, we don't need pilots, computers can fly this. You don't need, well, you know, whatever. There's so many people can be replaced by artificial intelligence, and it devalues the status of the profession. And being a GP is one of those things. I mean, I remember growing up in Belfast, and to be a GP was to be lauded, to be applauded. Someone in the community, you knew someone who was a doctor. It was something of esteem. Now, of course, that they were treated on a business model of anybody can do it by computer, do it, tick box, do this, do that. I just think they've devalued the whole job and profession.
There was a shocking story in one of the Sundays yesterday where an 80-year-old woman rang the GP surgery. Her husband had died. He'd got cancer. He refused to come out, and she had to hold a camera to show photographs to the doctor so he could confirm that he was dead over the telephone.
Does he look dead?
Barbaric.
Yeah, he looks dead to me. Yeah,
that is barbaric.
Horrendous.
I mean, horrendous. Where is the care?
The system's broken.
And open to abuse. If you can fake a death that way. I mean,
She thought she had a friend there who held the phone to her dead husband's face so they could see there wasn't breathing. But that is cruel.
I think there are just certain professions in life. There are lots of things, but being a doctor is a typical example. I should not be being paid more than a doctor. You know, to be a doctor in life is something the rest of us should look up to and say, wow, right. And you should treat them with that sort of respect. We all lose out in the end.
We do. Trouble is, there was that contract Blair did with them 15 years ago, which has never been rewritten. A lot of doctors don't work at weekends now, don't work in the evenings, and it's very difficult. And I think it's leading to a real breakdown in trust with the NHS, which is in a terrible mess. And that's going to be a big priority.
I thought we should have finished with the tea story. We should have finished.
Sorry, we did.
Everything's so depressing.
It is depressing.
But always nice to hear from Andrew
Very nice
Pearce.
to talk to you guys.
His take on everything there. Thank you, Andrew.
Lovely.
See you again next week. Thank you very much indeed. Well, we have reached the end of the lollipop right now. We will be back tomorrow morning to do it all again from 6 a.m.
In the meantime, we'll leave you in the capable hands of Tom Harwood. He's up next with the briefing. See you tomorrow.
Have a good day.
The UK is looking mostly dry with some sunny spells, although often cloudy in the east. Let's take a look at the details. Well, the southwest of England will have a largely sunny afternoon, allowing it to feel pleasantly warm for most. However, winds will still be brisk across the moors and along the coast. Southeast England and East Anglia, though, will be rather cloudy at times, with cloud thick enough in places to produce a few showers. Wales, however, will see plenty of sunshine across the country with just a little fair weather cloud bubbling up from time to time. The West Midlands will also see some good spells of sunshine this afternoon. However, further east, skies will tend to be cloudier and it will also be feeling cool in the east thanks to the northeasterly breeze. After a grey morning and cloudy across northern England, this afternoon will be much brighter and sunnier. However, the far north may once again see a fair bit of cloud. Scotland, though, will see a fair bit of cloud, with only the far west and far north seeing some spells of sunshine. Dry for most, though, although the odd spot of rain is possible. It should be dry across Northern Ireland this afternoon with a mix of cloud and sunny spells, the best of which will be in the west of the country. Heading into the evening and many parts staying dry with daytime cloud beginning to melt away. And that is how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Tonight on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis,